Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Foul Play YouTube channel. Today is Reading with the Crew, The Entrapment of Brendan Dassey, Part 10.
Thank you so much there, Jack61, and welcome everyone. My name is Dr. Silkman. I'm from the Foul Play team. I come from Adelaide, South Australia, and I'd like to welcome everyone. Thank you so much, no matter what platform you're joining us on. Thank you so much for joining us in our series. But before we start our podcast, I'd like to welcome our panel, our esteemed panel today. Welcome, Jack61. Good to see you here.
Thank you very much, and welcome to everyone that's out in the live chat for joining us. This is going to be a bit of a different little slide here you have prepared for us, at least in the beginning. But it's good information and it's relevant. So looking
Oh,
forward to
yeah.
that.
Yep. Thank you so much, Jack61.
Yep.
Next, we have Susan. Susan, welcome. Good to see you here.
Thank you, Doc. Just say hello to everyone and welcome. Thanks for coming.
Awesome. Thank you, Susan. And next we have, I don't recall. Welcome. Good to see you here.
Thank you. Hi, everybody, and welcome to Reading with the Crew.
Awesome. Thank you so much. And again, all of us here on the Foul Play team want to thank you so much for your support and encouragement. And last week's podcast, the Reading with the Crew podcast, really was an eye-opener and certainly generated a lot of discussion. Thank you so much, and some great questions. Well, look, guys, today, as Jack61 alluded to, today's going to be slightly different. We're going to take a little bit of a diversion, but it's very relevant to what Fassbender and Wiegert were questioning Brendan Dassey about. So today we're going to spend a little bit of time talking about Brendan Dassey's brother, and what he had said during the trials. It was very important, very relevant. Well, look, guys, welcome. And again, please let us know in chat which part of the world that you're listening from. It's great that we have an international audience. And again, thank you so much for your support. Jack61, can we have the opening slide, please, the very first slide? All right, now, as you know, Neville and I have put together this new series, Reading with the Crew. And as Jack61 stated, it's entitled The Entrapment of Brendan Dassey. And we have been focusing and deep diving on Brendan's March 1st interrogation. But there's just so much more than just that interrogation. There were also other individuals in the periphery that were also very much in the limelight. And today we're going to talk about that, then dive back into Brendan's interrogation. And as you know, we're up to episode 10. And again, there's just so much to cover. But today, guys, what we're going to be doing, I'll go through the major points. I hope you find them interesting. We're going to be asking the general question, who was actually fact-checking Brendan Dassey's recollections when he had come home from trick-or-treating on that Halloween? And what Blaine says is very important, very crucial. We're also going to be answering the question, why the Mike Corneely phone call to Brendan Dassey on October the 31st was extremely problematic for the investigators' timeline. Right, Jack61? Right, guys? It caused a furor. Jack61.
Oh, yeah. I was just going to agree with you. Absolutely.
Yep. So we're going to be looking into that and see the relevance of Mike Corneely's call to Brendan Dassey and the timing of that call. Unfortunately, we're going to be looking at the fact that Brendan Dassey made another error in his recollections involving his brother, Bobby Dassey. We're going to be going through that. And now we are able to resolve these conflicts that involve Brendan Dassey and his brother, Bobby. So that's very important. We're going to have a look at that in the podcast. And having spent a long time looking at the trial testimonies, the CASO reports, the DCI reports, I now put together a timeline involving both Brendan, Blaine, Bobby, and Barb. Essentially, when people saw each other and what time they saw each other. And that's very, very important because it establishes the time period that Stephen and Brendan could have been together, right? So that's very, very important. So we're having a look at that timeline. That's important. Then we're going to have a look at the rabbit hunting shenanigans involving Earl, Robert, Fabian. And I'll tell you what, they got so many things wrong which were presented during the trial, and they were impactful things. So we'll be having a look at that, see what the impact were on both Stephen and Brendan. And finally, guys, we're going to be looking at bones and buckets, right? Where the hell did Brendan Dassey get this notion about buckets being used to disseminate cremains? So we'll be looking at that. And our final thing that we'll be looking at today's podcast is that one of our members on Discord, Cherie Lynn Pontillo, had asked a question involving Cherie Culhane and an unknown sample. And today we're going to go over that. Only take 5 minutes, and we can resolve that issue that Cherie Culhane did not or didn't answer during her reports. And again, guys, if you have any questions, please place a queue and we'll try and answer them at the end of the podcast. Again, thank you so much. Jack 61, if we can have the very first slide, unless there are any comments before we start the podcast proper. So what I'll do, sorry, Jack 61.
Yeah, I just had one comment. It's not really a question, but this was a comment left on last week's podcast. You know, why do you guys keep doing this, and blah blah blah, and on and on. And that's fine. I get it. We cover a lot of material that in some shape or form has probably been covered in some way.
Yep.
But putting it together in this fashion, I think has allowed us to take a different look at events. And another thing is, if we don't talk about it, if we don't explain it, because these cases are complicated. There's just no way around that. And we are in a lull time, but to keep reminding what really happened, not this story that's taken completely out of context, like at trial, and it was. Things were completely ignored. I think it's important to do that. I'm an advocate for the truth. Where was that truth? I know you are. I know Susan, Cherie, everyone at Foul Play. We just want the truth.
Correct. And sometimes it's uncomfortable, but we've got to keep on deep diving into these things, because you'll see that there were so many mistakes that were made and critical mistakes as well. All right. So what we'll do.
I have one more comment, then I promise I'll
not at all.
move on. Another part of this that a lot of people, because they don't do it, but I do, and I know that I irritate people probably at Foul Play and everywhere, is records request. Here we are almost 20 years later, and they are stonewalling me on getting just regular stuff. I can't, send in a request. Okay, you got to wait 10 days. I don't hear anything. I send a reminder. I get nothing. I send another reminder. I get nothing. It's why are they stonewalling me in this supposedly airtight case? Why?
Yeah.
I'll leave it at that.
No, that'll be very, very frustrating. Well, look, what we'll do, we'll get this out the way first. This is the sample involving Cherie Culhane and Cherie Lynn Pontillo told me about this. It won't take too long. So essentially what this was all about was the investigators, the crime scene investigators, had gone into various residences and luminol treated various places. And now obviously looking for blood spatter. And what they did, Earl and his team went into Chuck Avery's house, and they're luminol treated. And so this is a report from John Ertl. So essentially, they found blood present in Chuck Avery's house. And I'll read it out. Charles Avery's residence was treated with luminol and examined for the presence of blood spatter patterns. Now remember, Brutus actually hit on the front door of Charles Avery's house and also inside his house as well. So they luminol treated and they found evidence of blood. And so what they did, they found the presence of blood on the couch, and I'll read it out here. Cuttings of apparent blood stains on the living room couch were recovered. Subsequently, these were submitted to the laboratory as items CH and CI, right? So they found spots of blood on Charles Avery's couch. They cut it out. They sent it to Cherie Cohen. So if we can have a look at the next slide, Jack 61. So you can see here, this is from the report done by Cherie Cohen. And in her report, she goes, there were two items that she examined. Item CH, which was one piece of fabric, reportedly cut from couch cushion, top left by zipper from trailer of Chuck Avery. And the other item that was presented to her was item CI, which was one piece of fabric reportedly cut from couch cushions, top right, from trailer of Chuck Avery. Now remember, they were looking for the presence of blood. They don't know whose blood it belonged to. So Cohen, what she did was to examine those two cut pieces of fabric. So if we can have a look at the next slide, Jack 61. So what they normally do, if you could just expand that a little bit, they look for the presence of blood, right? So they can do phenolphthalein testing and determine whether blood is present. So what they found was, what Cherie Cohen found was the presence of blood in item CH, but no blood was detected in item CI. So it's very interesting. Where she detected no blood, she didn't do a DNA extraction. So she was able to extract human DNA from item CH. So you can see that she was able to get a full genomic DNA profile from item CH, which you can see on the right-hand corner of the slide. So it's a full male profile. And if you just raise it up a little bit, so once she gets the profile, she can then comment on what that profile is, right? And I'll read it. The profile developed from item CH is not consistent with the buccal cell standards of Alan Avery, Brendan Dassey, or Stephen Avery. The profile is consistent with a different male than item CX. And remember, CX was the blood sample that was found in the Manitowoc quarry, in Mickle's quarry, right? So they don't know who CX belonged to. Cohen didn't even know who item CH belonged to, right? Who did it belong to? So if we have a look at the next slide, Jack 61, we're nearly finished this section. I think Cherie Cohen must have forgotten that she had a profile from Stephen, Brian, Alan, Brendan, Bobby, Earl, and Chuck himself, right? But in her reports, item CH remained as an unknown profile. So what I did, I had a look at the profile that she got and checked all the male profiles that she had. And guess what? If we have a look at the next slide, Jack 61, there you go. I solved it. Item CH is Chuck Avery, 100% match. So it's interesting and a bit disturbing that despite Cohen having all the samples in the lab on the computer, all she had to do was just simply cross-check the samples that she had in the lab, and she would have got the answer. So yeah, So the person who left blood on their own couch was none other than Chuck Avery himself. So that's one thing solved. Do we have any comments?
Holy shit.
Yep.
What a mistake.
Yep.
This 20 plus year veteran,
Yep.
a lab analyst, could just flub it again.
Yeah. And it's you don't have to do any additional work. All the profiles are in the computer. You just do a computer search and say, is there a match? And she had the actual answer in her lab. So it's Chuck, 100% match.
I'm just shaking my head.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yep.
I hope people can feel my eyes rolling from here. I'm in Michigan. I mean,
Yep.
God.
Yep. And so this goes to show the importance of cross-checking, making sure that you dot all your I's and cross all your T's, because the information is there. And I'm amazed that Colhane never picked this up. Yeah, it's completely bizarre, but at least that's resolved. So the person who left blood on their own couch was none other than Chuck Avery himself. All right.
I'm curious,
Oh,
Doc.
thank you. And thank you, Cherie. Thank you for raising that question. Thank you. Susan.
I'm curious, why would she compare that to CX?
Well, that's interesting.
Story.
Yeah, that's interesting, right? CX is an unknown male. And as far as I'm aware, I don't believe that CX has been run through the criminal databases to see if there's a match. And remember, at Mickle's quarry, there was also blood and tissue that was found in the quarry.
Yes.
And Colhane said that blood and tissue was not human, right?
Yet the dogs went crazy. 3 dogs went crazy around it.
3 dog hits. Correct. Correct.
And why wouldn't she mention that it also didn't match Bobby and all the other profiles she had?
That's right.
Yeah.
That's right.
So it's obvious that what had happened was she only compared it to the batch that she had, right? So she was doing CX at the same time, obviously. And this sample doesn't match CX. Yeah, but what about the other family members, right? And that's why all these genomic profiles are placed in a computer, and it take 20 seconds to do a check, right? And so that's one thing that's solved. And I was amazed. And thank you, Cherie Limpontillo, for raising that up. Awesome.
I have to wonder, Doc and everyone. Susan raised probably the most important question: why the focus on CX to Chuck? What prompted that?
Yep.
Something had to. Yeah, right. Exactly. You just sit there and think.
Yep.
Who said what to her? We could go on for hours about it. I won't. It is a great question, Susan. I don't understand. I don't understand that. And I don't understand why that wasn't ran through the national database through CODIS.
Yeah, it's rather bizarre. And this is something that could have easily been solved rather than being, hey, who is this mysterious blood sample from that's in Chuck Avery's house, right? Right? So
absolutely,
it belongs to Chuck. All right. Again, guys, thank you so much. If you've got any more questions like this, especially involving DNA, please do not hesitate. I love looking at these things and trying to solve them. And again, thank you, Cherie. So what we'll do, we'll make a start on the podcast. We'll just wait for the next slide to come up. This is talking about Brendan Dassey. And this really is very much a tragic story involving Blaine. And he was 16 years old at the time. He was a fairly young man. And we all know, and we're not going to go into a lot of detail, but there were very, very funny things, bizarre things happening between himself and also Mike Corneely, tragic things. But what we need to do is to focus on Blaine himself and what he said, because this had, believe it or not, a huge impact on both Brendan and Stephen. So what we need to ask is a couple of questions, and we'll show that here. What did Blaine observe when he came home from trick-or-treating on the night of Halloween, which is, of course, October the 31st? And are Blaine's recollections credible? And we're going to compare his trial testimony versus his initial statement, right? And this is very, very important because the investigators and also Kratz and Fallon used what Blaine said to their advantage. Right, Jack 61? Right, guys? It was shocking.
Yeah,
Absolutely shocking.
I'm not going to say too much because we're going to cover it, I'm sure. But the statements that Brendan said versus what Blaine said versus what Carmen said, and how this was, as you said, used is really shocking, and what they did.
Yep, correct. So we're going to compare what he said during the trial compared to his initial statements. We're also going to be showing a clip from Cam and ask the question, who was fact checking? And I'll tell you why, because people watching this shockumentary, I call it, and when they see certain things and people make certain comments, people are going, oh my God. So Stephen was doing this. This is terrible. This is shocking. However, when you deep dive, when you go back down to the root level and you look at all the supporting documents, you'll see how much of a sham this really, really was. It's actually quite shocking. Now, we're going to be presenting in full the crucial statements done by Carmen. Now, what's the proper way to say her surname? Is it Wench? How do you guys pronounce it?
Yeah, I think that's
Wench.
proper.
Yep, and I do apologize if I've mispronounced that. Carmen's statements and how it impacted the narrative, and what you'll find, you won't find Carmen anywhere, right, in the narrative, and it was done deliberately. And I'll tell you why. So we're going to have a look at all these things and why they were so important to the overall narrative and how they affected Brendan and Stephen. And as you can see here, this is Blaine, only a young kid himself, and he appeared both in the Stephen Avery trial and also in his brother's trial, right? And he said essentially the same thing. And what you're going to see, and you're going to get very, very angry, is that this, in my opinion, revealed the total dishonesty, right, Jack 61, right, guys? The total dishonesty of the investigators, Kratz and Fallon, because you'll see that they had access to these documents, but what they did is shut their eyes to them. Susan.
Perceptions are what they are.
Yeah. But you're just about to get really, really angry. So if we have a look at the next slide, Jack 61, or just wait till that comes up. This trial is all about Stephen Avery's burn pit. Make no mistake about it. There's been millions of words written, lots of discussions. Ask Jack 61 on X. This is still very much a very active topic, one of great controversy. And if we have a look at the top left-hand picture, this is Stephen Avery's burn pit. This photograph was taken by Trooper Reese on November the 6th. And you can see Bear standing on top of the burn pit. And during the trial, it was images like this that were shown to the officers, to the investigators, etc., etc. And the reason why they had to show pictures like this is that there were no in situ photographs taken of the burn pit or the cremains on November the 8th, right? So here is the fundamental question, and this is critical because it's pervasive right throughout the testimony, especially the interrogation of Brendan Dassey. And the question is, is this the primary burn site? Is this where Teresa Horbach was cremated? Because remember, if you have a look at the image down below, and Jack 61 will point to you that image, allegedly the ash layer was sifted, and these cremains were found, essentially found after the ash was sifted. But what you notice is something very, very interesting. You've got bone fragments in plastic bags, right? But the other bone fragments, they haven't been characterized. They're just left loose in that box. Now, if you look at those fragments, there's nothing that you can distinguish, right, guys? There's nothing that appears to be a rib or a tooth,
No.
part of the skull, the spinal cord, nothing, right? They're just small bone fragments that haven't been classified. Now, remember, Stephen uses the burn pit. They get rid of animal carcasses. They get rid of possible meats that they've eaten. It's just a general place that they use to burn trash. You don't know how long those bone fragments have been there in that burn pit. But what you do notice is that those bones, critical bones, have been isolated and placed in plastic bags, right? So it's interesting that the remainder of those bones, they could either be bones, they could be rocks, they could be insulation. You've got no idea. And I think the late BB, correct me if I'm wrong, she even found a chicken bone in that box.
Yeah, that was Bog Haze. I know a lot of people may remember her. That was appeared on Reddit. She was a long-time Redditor that joined into the, looking deep into this case. She's the one that pointed out from one of the photographs taken, that's a bird bone.
A bird bone, correct? Correct.
Avian, and
Avian.
It's like, whoa, avian. Yeah, correct.
Yep. And that's why you have to be very, very careful when you have a look at this box of bones, because remember that Eisenberg had weighed all the bones, and between 50 to 60% of Teresa's skeletal remains are unaccounted for. Anyway, I digress. Susan, did you have a comment?
No, I was just going to say I remember fog haze.
Yeah. So there's no doubt that whatever you see up top in those in the box, that could be anything. That could be from any species, right? But down below in the plastic bags are very likely the human bones. What is interesting, and I don't want to trigger Duke, but 2 days later, they found item BZ, right?
Yeah.
And item BZ, and we're not going to talk much about item BZ because we'll be here for 4 hours, but item BZ was bone and also desiccated muscle tissue. And it's remarkable. And Jack 61 will tell you, and we've had many discussions over the years, it's interesting that you have the one combustion event in which the state is saying that Stephen and Brendan cremated Teresa Horbach in a great big whopping fire. And yet you've got cremains which are just bone, no muscle, no organs, nothing. And yet with item BZ, you've got large chunks, golf ball sized chunks of desiccated muscle tissue. This is all in the same combustion event. And I think Susan made the comment, where are the bullets? Where are the so-called bullet leads? Nothing of that has been found. So, sorry, has someone got a comment?
Well, I just want to answer this question while we're talking about this, because we'll get lost if we don't. 3Rev4 says, where are the tags? And in this particular instance with the white box, there is a tag on the bottom.
Yep.
For all of these bones. And
that's
this is
the
not
problem.
Yeah, that is a problem, because this is not unusual that we found that in many of the property tags where cremains are concerned.
Yep. So essentially, to answer that question, this is where it gets extremely complex. You've got one box that's got one tag, and yet when the bones or some bones are removed from that box, you have other tag numbers. So you've got multiple levels of tag numbers, and it's almost impossible to try and find the linear relationship of all these items, right? So it gets extremely complex. Susan.
I want to know where the ruler is to show
Correct.
size.
Yep, correct.
That's always bothered me about this.
Correct.
This evidence.
Yep, correct. And what you'll find is, and again, I don't want to divert from our podcast. What you'll find is a lot of the images, you don't find scale. You got no idea of scale. And that becomes extremely relevant because it gives you an idea of the size of things and the relationship of one item compared to another. And in Mr. Kratz's book, and you could remember, guys, he showed up a very, very close blow-up image of bone fragments entwined in the tire wire. And you're thinking to yourself, well, why don't you put a scale? Why don't you show a photograph wide so you can see the relationship of those bone fragments to the rest of the burn pit? You don't. You get a highly zoomed in image, and it gives you no idea of scale, how these bone fragments are associated with one another. So, Jack 61, if we can go to the top right-hand corner about why this case is all about the burn pit. So, a lot of discussion has been gone about what it takes to convert a human being to bone fragments. And that's why what Blaine said was devastating. And we'll go through it. And now, people have worked with human cadavers. They've worked with burn pits. They've worked with burn barrels, the whole lot. So they know what it takes to convert a human being to bone fragments. Now, remember, no arm, leg, head, torso was found. Nothing. Only tiny bone fragments. So scientists know that work in this area, you need three things. You need a very high temperature. You need a constant fuel supply. And you also need a time. You need around about 6 hours. If you're looking at a burn pit, you're looking at about 6 hours of constantly tending the fire, right? Because otherwise the fire is going to go out. If you don't supply enough energy, fuel, raise the temperature, you're not going to convert a body to tiny bone fragments. Now, people have done these studies using pig carcasses, so they know. And I think Ripper Jack did it with, was it a llama or some animal?
A llama, it was.
Right?
Yep.
He was able to work out exactly how much time, energy, fuel it took to convert the animal into bone fragments. Takes a lot of heat, takes a lot of time. So you can see this image here. This is inside a crematorium. This is a human being being converted to bone fragments. And they know that to convert a human being to bone fragments, you need very high temperatures, direct heat, constant supply of heat. And Jack 61, if you just raise it up a little bit, you'll see that professional crematoriums use around about 1800 to 2000 degrees Fahrenheit for around about 2 hours. And you can see that the human being has now been converted to bone fragments. But what you notice is there's no muscle, there's no tissue, there's no organs, there's no hair, there's nothing. Everything has been vaporized, right? So you know for a fact that in a professional crematorium, you need very high temperatures, constant supply of fuel, often in this case, gas, around about 2 hours. So the question is, how did Stephen and Brendan, and I don't mean disrespect, convert Teresa Hallbach into the tiny bone fragments that you see in that box of bones, right?
Never happened. Never happened.
In my opinion, there is absolutely no way that Teresa Hallbach, that's the primary site of her cremation, no chance in hell. You've got professional people like Dahan, who've Jack 61. If we can have a look at the burn pit again, Stephen Avery's burn pit, I'll tell you what, he highlighted what the issues were with that burn pit. The burn pit itself is relatively small. It's also relatively flat. It's not like a deep chamber, right? But its biggest issue is that it's open to the elements, which means that when you supply heat, when you supply energy, the majority of the heat goes straight up, right? Dahan and others have shown that it is the radiant heat, the heat that can reflect back on the body, that is important for combustion, right? So Dahan showed that if you want to cremate a human being to bone fragments, you don't use an open pit. You use, guess what Dahan came up with? Use a, what type of barrel? Use a burn barrel, right? Use a burn barrel, because a burn barrel can get extremely hot. The heat is radiant. It reflects back in, and you can supply it with fuel. And if you supply it with a source of oxygen, it's smokeless, right? It's a turbo burn barrel. I was shocked when I saw it. You can go on the internet and you can see that if you supply oxygen, fan blower, it gets extremely hot, orange flame, no problems, right? So Stephen has said that when he burns in his burn pit, he uses tires. He uses other accelerants as well. So Jack 61, if we can just shift a little bit more to the right-hand side, scientists know, people know at what temperatures tires burn at. They burn at around about 750 degrees Fahrenheit. Not hot enough, right? Yes, they burn. They do produce energy and heat, etc., but they're not hot enough. Plus, you've got tires. What are tires made out of? Rubber. And correct me if I'm wrong, guys, but did Eisenberg find any rubber residue anywhere?
No. Or rubber odor. No.
Or rubber odor, right? Which seems rather bizarre, that if you're using tires to cremate somebody, you're not going to find any type of residue at all, right, on the cremains that were discovered. When she opened up the lids and had a smell, nothing. No rubber smell whatsoever. So keep that in the back of your mind, because what Blaine said was devastating, right? So Jack 61, unless there are any questions, can we go to the next slide, please? So this is looking at what Blaine said in court. Susan, do you see the slide?
I do, Doc.
Yeah. Would you like to read the question, which is Kratz, and Cherie, would you like to read the answers, which is Blaine?
Okay.
Thank you.
And can you remind us again about what time you got home?
About 11.
Okay. Now, at 11 o'clock, when you got home, Blaine, do you remember walking to your house?
Yes.
And when you walked to your house, did you see anything over by your Uncle Steve's house?
Yes.
Tell the jury what you saw at your Uncle Steve's house at about 11 o'clock that night.
I seen Steve and Avery sitting there watching the fire.
Watching what?
Watching the fire, the bonfire.
There was a bonfire at your Uncle Steve's?
Yes.
Can you tell the jury where that bonfire was, please?
Behind the garage.
Okay. Now, he said exactly the same thing during Brendan Dassey's trial. The fact that when Blaine had come home from trick and treating, as he was walking home, and don't worry, we'll go over the whole lot, he saw Stephen Avery outside behind his garage watching a bonfire, right? Now, Why is that significant? Because the judge and the jury are hearing this and thinking, oh my God, when was the last time that Bobby Dassey and Stephen Avery saw Teresa Halbach? Answer is at around about 2:35 p.m. And if you notice, why is that damaging and devastating? Because nearly what? How many hours? From 2
Oh, that's
o'clock to 11?
9 hours,
9
8.5,
hours.
8.5, 9 hours. Yep.
Yep. And Stephen Avery is outside watching a bonfire. And how many hours did I say that it takes to convert a human being to bone fragments?
6
Around about
hours.
6. Around about 6 hours. And need constant fuel, constant tending the fire. Oh my God, Blaine Dassey just said, yeah, when I came home from trick-or-treating, I saw my uncle. He was standing next to a bonfire, right? So does this
Well,
help Stephen and Brendan, or does it harm Stephen and Brendan?
it kills them because now you've got this perception. Steven's sitting there all night roasting Teresa in this
Yep,
bonfire in this pit behind his house. That's the
yep,
perception.
yep. And what did Fassbender say to Brendan? Oh, we believe that's where Teresa got cooked. He used that word,
He
got
did.
cooked,
That's right.
right? And
Good
so
Lord.
yeah, he said that to Brendan. And so now you're the jury and the judge are going, you came home at 11 at night and you saw your uncle next to a bonfire at 11? Oh my God, he did it. He really did cremate Teresa Halbach. So look what they showed in CAM. And it's very important that you listen to what they say. This was shown in CAM. I hope we don't get taken off the air, but Jack61, do you have that little clip?
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
only
This is going
short.
to be, yes, this is going to be a doozy. This is you wanted me to show this in order, right? The one with Fassbender and I think Brenda's in it. And
Yeah, yeah.
yeah. Okay.
Have a listen. Have a listen to what they say.
All right. Here we go.
There were a lot of witnesses to him burning back there on October 31st.
Bobby saw it when he left for work. Blaine said that he saw it when he got home from trick-or-treating.
Barb's boyfriend.
Do you know anybody else that saw that big fire?
At first, nobody in the family remembers the fire.
In the beginning, nobody really admitted that there was a fire. It never came up really. When asked, Brendan didn't say it happened on Monday night. Blaine didn't really recall it.
It's only till after the bones are found and re-interview.
In some truthers' eyes, it makes more sense to them that the police brainwashed all of these parties into believing there was a fire on October 31st when really there wasn't.
We have to look at the timeline of statements, which are more accurate before police intimidated who, what their statement originally said, what it said after talking to police.
Candy, she saw the big fire. Did you know that?
I'm not denying that there was a fire. I want to see the words that them use a big fire, or is that your words?
No.
I could see the flames and it's like, holy man, he has a huge fire down there. I don't understand how a house couldn't have melted.
All right. So guys, and also people in chat, what's your take-home message when you hear that clip at Jack61?
Well, it's hard to separate, what we've found out.
No. Keep what we found out. If you're watching this as a casual viewer, what's your impression?
Well, my God, there was a gigantic fire on the back of Stephen's property on the night of October 31st. He
Yep.
burned her. Well, as Fassbender said, he cooked her. And then you
Yep.
have Candy come in for the first time ever after, let's just say 15 years, maybe give or take. She's never made that statement to anyone that I'm aware of. And I think we've got as much information as anyone. I've never heard her say that ever until Cam.
Yep. Interesting. Cherie, what's your impression if you saw that clip from Cam?
I suppose if you didn't know anything except what they're saying, it would sound believable.
Yep. Okay. And Susan, what's your impression?
I agree with that, but I also recall Candy's first interview, and she did not believe for a minute that anybody in the family was involved in this.
100% correct. 100% correct. But when you show a documentary, like this, and you notice what Brenda said, at first, nobody recorded a fire, right? When the family members were asked, well, do you recall seeing a fire? No. What fire are you talking about? And it's interesting that Mind Shock even said it, because you need to compare the initial statements and then the statements made after the law enforcement got involved. What you notice is a transition in their observations. Correct, guys?
Major transition.
Major transition. You go, wait a minute. They all said, what fire are you talking about? To, oh, yeah, there's a fire. And Scott Tadich and also Candy Avery kept on saying that the fire was a great big whopping fire. Correct? Huge.
Right.
So big that it was going to melt the house down. But what is interesting, you notice they mention Blaine. Oh, when Blaine came home trick-or-treating, right? He saw it, and you saw the statement he made in the trial, in both trials. Hey, when I came home at 11 o'clock, there's my uncle standing out there tending the fire, a big bonfire. You go, oh my God, the guy did it. He had cremated Teresa Horbach. He was there for what, 9 hours? He had plenty of time to do it, right, Jack 61? Right, guys?
That's right.
However, a little bit of research and a little bit of fact checking reveals the horrible truth. So, Jack 61, if we can have a look at the next slide, please. This was something that even I wasn't aware about, right? Even I wasn't aware about this report. And this is the DCI report involving Carmen. This is DCI report 145. We have it in our website, in our library. Now, why is this so important? Now, Carmen happened to be 44 years old at the time. She was a mother, responsible mother. And why is her statements in this report so crucial? She was the one that both picked up Blaine and dropped him off on October the 31st, right? She picked up Blaine, took Blaine to her house to accompany her boys for trick-or-treating. So she was there at a critical time. What rolled me up was that, please see if I'm wrong, Fassbender, Wiegert, Kratz, and Fallon all had to have this report, correct?
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely, they had it.
Of course.
They had to be aware of this report. So now we are in a very strong position to ask the question, was Brendan Dassey credible about his 11 p.m. observation of a fire, right? or was there a mistake, right? So now the investigators, and you will not believe who went to speak to Carmen, wanted to ask, hey, look, is this true? Did you pick up and drop off Blaine? So if we can go to the next slide. Now what we'll do, we'll split it up and we'll get each person to read one page at a time. Jack 61, do you see the very first slide?
I do.
Yep. Can you read it out, please? This is Carmen and her report.
All righty. On Friday, November 11, 2005, at approximately 11:46 a.m., Special Agent Lisa Wilson and Calumet County Investigator Wendy Baldwin interviewed Carmen K. Winch and gives her information at her residence and the information in Two Rivers. Wilson explained to Winch that it was Wilson's understanding that she had been at the Avery property on Monday, October 31, 2005, Halloween, when said that Brendan Dassey, I guess his information, was going trick-or-treating with her son, Jason. That evening, as they were going to as they were going to chaperone Jason's 2 young brothers. Winch and Blaine had called about 1/2 hour after getting home from school and told her that he needed a ride from his place to her place for trick-or-treating. Winch said that she picked Blaine up at the end of Avery Road between 5:30 and 6 p.m., where the Chevy Blazer was for sale. Winch said that she would not drive down the driveway to Blaine's residence. That was bumpy and
Right.
rutted. Okay, yeah, bumpy and rutted. Winch said Blaine was dressed in an outfit for Halloween. Wilson asked Winch if she recalled seeing any smoke or fire as she was coming down Avery Road to pick up Blaine. Winch said she did not recall seeing any smoke or fire, but added that she was in a hurry as they felt that they may be late for trick-or-treating. Special Agent Wilson asked Winch how Blaine seemed once she picked him up. Winch said that Blaine seemed happy to get away on a school night, as he usually was not allowed to do things on school nights.
Okay. So the important things there is that Blaine, when he got home, called Carmen up, right? When Blaine got home, called Carmen up, hey, look, I need a ride. I need a ride to get to trick-or-treating. Furthermore, Carmen said that I picked up Blaine at the end of Avery Road between 5:30 and 6 p.m. So she gave a general time. At that time of the night, it was dark. But notice what she said. She goes, that's where the Chevy Chase or the Chevy Blazer was for sale. So if we have a look at the next picture, Jack 61, the next...
Before we move on, I want to point out something, and it's just me being anal about something, but I just think it's important to pay attention to these reports. In this report, we see that Wendy Baldwin is the one that accompanied Special Agent Lisa Wilson. But if you look at the original page, it says Wendy Schmitz.
Yep. Correct. But what is significant here is Wendy Baldwin was a big player in all of this, correct? She was everywhere.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
Right? And you can't tell me that the investigators were not aware of this report by Carmen.
Oh, they were very aware of it. Concerning Blaine, he was going to be a witness. Absolutely, they were aware.
Yep, correct. So if we have a look at the next slide, right? Carmen was 100% correct, right? So where Carmen picked up Blaine was at the end of Avery Road. Note, that's the same place that the bus drops off both Blaine and also Brendan, right there at that spot there. And right next to that spot, there's the Chevy Blazer, right? That was for sale at the end of Avery Road. But you also note two other things. The mailboxes, right? Where I've highlighted mailboxes. Brendan and Blaine walked straight past the mailboxes to go home. And remember what Brendan said, later on, I got this idea I had to go back and pick up the mail. That's absolute garbage. I spoke with Barb. She said, the boys never pick up the mail. That's my job. I pick up the mail for my family. Mama Avery is the one that delivers Stephen's personal mail. She uses a golf cart, drives down there, delivers his mail, have a bit of a chit chat, and comes home. Brendan Dassey never picked up the mail, and he even recanted later on in the April 13, I think, interrogation. He goes, nah, I never went down there, right? But you also know another thing. There is Mama Avery's house right on the top right-hand corner, right? And remember how Candy Avery saying, I saw big fire, big smoke. I just couldn't believe that the house didn't burn down. Well, that's where Mama Avery is. And no one on the salvage yard reports seeing a lot of smoke, a lot of fire. But what's important is this, is that Carmen picked up Blaine between 5:30 and 6 o'clock. But also when she drove down Avery Road, you could see where Stephen's residence is. She saw no fire, no smoke, and it was dark. The sun had set at 4:50. So there's no doubt that Carmen was there. Carmen picked up Blaine, right? So if we go to the next slide, Cherie, would you like to read that as well? Take note of this one. Cherie, do you see it?
Yeah, I was having issues. Okay. As Special Agent Wilson asked Wench if she also dropped Blaine off, Wench said Blaine was supposed to arrange his own ride home. However, at approximately 8 p.m., he told her he couldn't find a ride home. Wench said she gave Blaine a ride home as well. Wench said she dropped Blaine off where she had picked him up at approximately 8:15 to 8:30 p.m. Wench said she recalled seeing a gas truck at the workstation nearby Avery Road. Special Agent Wilson asked Wench if she recalled seeing any smoke or fire when she dropped Blaine off. Wench said she did not. Wench added that she does not like driving at night, so she was in a hurry to drop him off and get out of there and get home. Special Agent Wilson asked Wench if she saw Blaine any other time during that Halloween week. Wench said Blaine stayed at her residence on Friday, November 4th, 2005. Wench said Blaine was at her house after school on that Friday, dropped off around supper time by one of his brothers, who Wench thought was Bobby. Wench said Blaine stayed overnight.
Okay. What is the crucial time that Carmen dropped off Blaine?
8:15 to 8:30.
Is 8:15, 8:30 anywhere remotely close to 11 p.m. at night?
No.
No, but it gets worse. So quite clearly, they asked Carmen, were you surprised that Blaine was able to come out? She goes, yeah, normally they're not allowed out on a school night. There is no way that Carmen is going to drop off Blaine at 11 o'clock at nighttime. Carmen is a responsible parent. Check 61.
That's right. I was going to say exactly what you just said.
Yeah. Carmen is a responsible parent, dropped off Blaine early. And you'll see later on, there's a lot of evidence to suggest that, Blaine was home probably just after 8, right? But yet Blaine said in his court trial testimony, oh, yeah, I came home at 11 and I saw Stephen tending the fire, right? All right. So that's crucial. That's a big, big mistake. And I can't believe that nobody picked it up in the trial and said, wait a minute, the person who picked you up and dropped you off at 8:15 and 8:30. What are you talking about 11, right? Susan, do you see the slide?
Yes.
Yep. Let's go for it.
Wench said on Saturday morning, Blaine was picked up by his boss, Mike Fornelli. Wench said that on Saturday afternoon, Blaine had called from Corneli's cell phone and said that he couldn't get onto his property and asked to stay at her residence. Wench said Corneli brought Blaine back to her residence and Blaine stayed there until Sunday night. Wench said that sometime around 8 p.m. and 9 p.m., Corneli picked Blaine up. Wench said Blaine had a conversation with his mother, Barb, that night while he was at her house, and Barb had told Blaine to go with Corneli. Special Agent Wilson asked Wench if it was unusual for Blaine to come over to her house on a school night, in this case, Halloween. Wench said she thought it was, as Blaine was not usually allowed to go anywhere on school nights.
Yep, correct. So for Blaine to go out trick-or-treating, he's not going to stay there till 11 o'clock, right? Carmen is responsible and brought Blaine back at around about 8:15, 8:30, right? So that is a massive, massive error in the trial. And remember, what you say in the court is regarded as the truth.
Gospel.
As the truth. So now you've got Blaine making a statement during both Brendan's and Stephen's trial that he had come home at 11 and he saw his uncle tending a fire. right? So that's regarded as the truth. Yet the very person that picked up Blaine and dropped him off said, no, I picked him up at about 5:30, between 5:30 and 6. It was dark. I saw no smoke. I saw no fire. I brought him back at 8:15, 8:30. I saw no smoke. I saw no fire, right? And remember what we said. To convert a human being to bone fragments, you need a fire at least 6 hours, lots of fuel, correct? So what was being said in the trial is the complete opposite to what the witnesses who were with Blaine are saying. But it gets worse. You see in a second that Blaine's initial statements are completely different to what he said during the trial, right? So if we have a look at the next slide, Jack 61, I could read this out if you want me to.
Yeah, before I put that up, again, I think it's important to state rather forcefully, underscore it, whatever. These law enforcement officers were well aware of her statement, and they ignored it. Completely ignored it.
Correct.
Now, whether
Correct.
I mean, maybe they think, well, that's the defense's job to rebut and find this gold nugget, but
It's disgusting. It's underhanded. It's lying.
It's
changing the facts of the damn case. Deceitful. Yes.
Yep. So I'd like to ask people in chat, were you aware of Carmen's report? Were you guys aware of this report? I certainly wasn't. Not a week or so ago, I became aware of it because I did some cross-checking. But were you guys aware of this report? Jack 61, were you aware of this report?
I was aware of it, but I'm going to be quite honest. I completely forgot about it because I read all the DCI reports when we got them, and I read the newer ones we got as we got them. But I got to be straight. I just forgot completely about it.
But also where it fitted in. We're all fitted into the narrative.
Absolutely.
Right?
Absolutely. That's right.
What about you? I don't recall. Were you aware of this report?
No, I wasn't.
Okay. Susan, what about yourself? Were you aware of this report?
Yes, I was. I've read this before, and I knew about the discrepancy. Yeah.
Okay. Interesting. So I'll read this part out. Wait a minute. When did Blaine travel to Crivets? I think Blaine went on the Saturday because his brother Brendan went on the Friday night with Chuck. So I think
it says here that he stayed at Fornelli's.
Oh no, that's the week after. That's the I have to check that one. Yeah, I have to check that one.
I think it was that weekend.
Okay, I have to check. Good one.
The following weekend, the same one. Everybody went to Crivets on the 4th, 5th.
Okay.
6th. I think it was that weekend they were talking about.
Yeah, they were there on the 5th. Correct. So it appears that Blaine was with Cornelie.
Yeah.
And then dropped off at his friend's house.
Okay.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Because they had taken over the property and he couldn't go home.
Yeah, that's right. Couldn't get back. Interesting. All right. So I'll just read this one here. S.A. Wilson asked Wench about Blaine's friendship with her son, Jason. Wench said Blaine and Jason were great friends. Wench said Blaine always looked out for Jason with his various health issues. Wench said Blaine was good about looking after Jason at school when people picked on him as well. Wench said Blaine was well behaved and that he did a lot of housework at home. Right? So quite clearly, this is a very, very important report that completely debunks Blaine's recollections in court. But guys, was Carmen called up to testify?
No, it's a complete rebuttal.
Yes.
Of the timeline.
Yep. It is a complete rebuttal of the timeline. And the important thing is it's quite clear that Blaine had been dropped off by Carmen between 8:15 and 8:30. right? And you'll see that there's other evidence to suggest that Blaine was home just after 8. So this notion of him seeing his uncle at 11 is impossible.
It's rubbish.
It
The
complete
defense
rubbish.
missed it. They missed it.
Well, they did, but you got to ask the deeper question: what motivated him to say that time? Something had to motivate Blaine.
Well, we know what that was. I mean, they intimidated all of them
Yeah,
Correct.
into saying what they wanted them to say.
Thank you for saying
Correct.
it.
Correct. 100% correct. Remember what Mindshock said? That guy in Mindshock? You have the initial statements, then suddenly there's a transformation, right? But if we look, sorry, Jack 61.
No, I was just going to agree because, I've read all these statements from November and how this whole thing transformed. And it was around maybe a little less than mid November that this fire situation began. But remember, in Scott Taddick's first statement, and he drove up to pick Barb, he drove
Yeah.
there to the trailer to pick up Barb. He didn't say shit about a fire, not one word.
No. But you'll see, you're going to get really, really angry because very early on November the 7th, this is 2 days after the RAV, they questioned Blaine. The investigators questioned Blaine. And guess who's with him? Mike Corneli is with him. So what Blaine says now and what Corneli says as well on November the 7th is crucial. So let's have a look at the next slide, please. Who would like to read this one out? So this is the investigators speaking with Brendan Dassey and also with Mike Corneli. Who would like to read this one out?
I'll read it, Doc.
Okay. Thank you, Susan.
At approximately 5:20 p.m. on 10/31/05, Blaine was picked up by Jason's mom, Carmen Winch. Winch picked Blaine up in a purplish-colored minivan. After Winch picked up Blaine went to Jason's house for supper, and then they went trick-or-treating. Blaine estimated he returned from trick-or-treating at approximately 9:30 that evening. Corneli stated at approximately 5:30 or 5:45 that evening, Corneli called the Dassey residence and spoke to Brendan. Brendan advised Corneli that Blaine had gone trick-or-treating. When Blaine returned from trick-or-treating, he did not see anyone outside. Blaine stated when he got home, Brendan, Barb, and Bobby were inside and everyone was still awake. Shortly after Blaine got home, sometime between 9:30 and 10, Blaine said he went to bed. Blaine was asked if he recalled anything unusual happening after he went to bed that evening, and Blaine said he does not. Blaine was asked if he could recall anyone using the burning barrels that day. Blaine said he did not. Blaine explained there were 4 burning barrels behind his house that the Dassey family uses. Blaine said these burning barrels are not used by Stephen, Grandma or Grandpa, Alan and Dolores, or Chuck. Blaine drew a picture of the area around his house and Steve's house, and Blaine indicated where Steve's burning barrel was located. When Blaine was asked what the burning barrels are used for, Blaine responded they're used for burning garbage. Blaine estimated that they burn trash when the barrels become full, averaging about 1 burn every 2 weeks. Blaine thought the last time he burned anything in the burning barrels was sometime last week, possibly Thursday, November 3rd.
Well, look at this. Oh, I think, Susie, you might have to mute your microphone. There's a bit of feedback. But you could see that Blaine says, no, I got home at about 9:30. He was out, right? But it's not 11 o'clock. But he says something very important. He goes, when I came home from trick-or-treating, I saw Brendan, Barb, and Bobby. Did he see anybody outside?
No, nothing.
Does he mention seeing a fire?
Nothing. No, not a word.
What did he do? He came home and he went to
Went to bed.
He went to bed.
Yeah.
And did he see Stephen Avery throw anything in a burn barrel?
No.
No. So you've got reality very early on. These guys know nothing about what's happened, what's been found. This is a day before the cremains are found. He goes, no. I came home. I saw my brothers. I saw my mum. I went to bed. Right? To school night. He went to bed. And he mentions nothing about 11 o'clock, fire, seeing Stephen go to a burn barrel. Nothing whatsoever. It is completely contradictory, right? But this is very, very important because they asked him a crucial question, and I'll read it out. Anything unusual happen after he went to bed? And Blade said, no. Is there a question?
Yeah, Crockett's got a question. It's a good one. Was Dean and Jerry given the report outlining Carmen's statement? And I'd have to look. You have to look at the discovery emails because in those emails, it outlines what Kratz is turning over to Loy at first. We don't have too much on Loy, but then, of course, Beating and Straying come on board in late February 2006. And it does detail the reports and the number. I don't know what number this particular report is, but we could cross-reference that. I will tell you that a lot of these reports were not turned over until late in December, or moving in toward the fall, and just that huge dump in December. So yeah, they were given. I'm going to say haphazardly. They weren't given necessarily in order, because, as we know, a lot of these reports were written, or the event would happen, but the report might not be written for two freaking months.
That's right. That's right. But there's no doubt that, just to answer Crockett Thompson's question, Strang knew there was something wrong with Blaine. Everything that Blaine was saying was a huge problem, and Strang kept on questioning him. And as I said to you in the last podcast, Kratz got so upset that they tossed out the jury. Why? Because Strang was going to show Blaine his initial statements. Right, Jack? Remember that?
Right, I do.
And Kratz threw out the whole jury saying, oh, why is he doing this for? Because he wanted to refresh the memory of Blaine. It is clear that Blaine cannot remember things, and it's clear that Blaine makes things up too, just like his brother. Blaine was very uncomfortable when he was being questioned. He kept on saying yes, 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 even though what he was saying was completely wrong. And now we have an independent witness Carmen, who picked up Blaine, dropped off Blaine, that is completely different to what he said during the trial. Furthermore, you've got Blaine himself saying in an early DCI report, I came home 9:30. He was actually out by an hour. But when I got home, I saw my brothers, and I saw my mum. I went to bed, didn't see anything.
Right. And she has so there was no motive for her to lie. I mean, there's no connection for that at all.
No. But
So-
sorry, Susan.
I have to ask. So did Willis not allow Strang to
Oh no,
refresh him?
he did.
Okay.
He was. Kratz goes, oh yeah, I suppose he can have a look at his own report. And they were claiming the arguments were, oh, it's only hearsay. It's not this. You ask him to look at his report. And Strangs go, that's his words. That's his report, right? So it goes to show that if you don't do your homework properly, going into a trial, Kratz and Fallon had a ball, right? Because no one said, excuse me, but that's not what you said in your initial DCI reports. Wait a minute, the person who picked you up and dropped you off is giving a totally different time. How do you account for that? There was none of that, right? And I'll show you another clip later on cam, right, Jack61, who was fact checking the fact checkers.
Yep.
right?
Can I
Susan,
can I make one more point?
make as many as you want.
Wasn't it during Stephen and Jody's call just after 9 o'clock that Stephen said Barb was leaving again?
Yes, 9:06. Correct.
So
On October the
Blaine
31st.
had to be home before
Yes.
9
Yes.
o'clock.
Yes. Yes, correct. So there were all these, and I'll show you the timeline. Excellent pickup. There were all these timelines that indicated when they got home, when Brendan was home, and when Brendan could have possibly been with Stephen. All the answers were right there. No one had done it. No one had done it during the trial.
And
Jack
I
61.
think, yeah, and I think Doc and everyone, I think that what Susan just said again underscores the underhandedness of what they did.
Yes.
It was so fucking deceitful. Pardon my
Yep.
language.
Yep.
And
They
one
knew.
more thing.
No. Go for it.
One more thing. Nan's Life pointed out that the time change was Sunday, and we're talking about Monday,
Correct.
right?
Correct.
So Blaine may have had a clock that had not been set back,
Yes.
and he may have looked at a clock that was 9:30 when it would have
On
been
his wrist.
8,
Yep.
8:30,
Correct. Correct.
or on his on the the wall in the kitchen, or
Correct.
his
Correct.
bedroom, whatever.
Correct. Correct. 100% correct. Because what is interesting is on October the 30th, when they had to change their clocks, guess what Stephen Avery mentions? I got to change my clocks. On one of the
That's
calls
right.
to Jody,
He did.
he goes, I got to change my clocks. So he was running on time, but it's quite possible that Blaine was running on the old time, right? That's a very interesting observation. But clearly, Carmen knew what time she had picked up Blaine and knew what time she had dropped him off, right? Which is 8:15 to 8:30. But there were independent events, just like you said, that backed up an earlier dropping off, not a late dropping off. But oh my God, that changes the dynamics totally. Why? Blaine's in bed. And the reason why they asked Blaine, well, did you notice anything unusual when you went to bed? Jack 61, have a look at the next slide, right? This is the Yonder residence. It just so happens that the bedroom of the boys is at the back. They've got open windows facing the back, right? And to the left-hand side is Stephen Avery's burn pit, right? And here's the issue, right? If you've got a great big whopping fire happening within, 100 yards of those windows, a great big whopping fire is going to generate heat, smoke, noise, and light.
And light.
Guys, would you agree?
Absolutely. I doubt that it's even 100 yards.
No, it's a short distance,
Not
right?
that far.
Also,
Yes.
also, Doc, I can see Avery Road here from the burn pit.
Yes.
So
Yes.
anybody driving down Avery Road
Yes.
could see that
Potentially,
area.
yes. Yes.
And I would
Very well.
think when it's dark out, somebody's going to notice a fire
Correct.
driving down that road.
100% correct.
Anybody up there on 147 across that field, if it was a great big whopping fire, they may not be able to actually see the flames, but if it was a huge fire, they would have definitely seen the halo.
And the glow. And Jack
Yeah.
61.
Even a smaller fire.
Yes.
It doesn't
Yes.
have to be huge.
Yeah. And Jack 61 played many phone calls of people ringing in. Can I burn brush? Just to let you know that I'm burning brush.
Absolutely.
My neighbor, he's got a fire going on. They notice each other. They're in rural Wisconsin. They know when people burn, right? And Carmen, when she arrived, when she left and also picked up and dropped off Blaine, I saw no smoke. I saw no fire. And Susan is 100% correct. Remember where Stephen was standing, he saw Teresa Horbuck turn left on Highway 147, which meant from his point of view, he could see all the way down Avery Road, right? which meant that if someone had a fire going, your peripheral vision, you would have seen it. But here's the beauty. The wind was blowing. Guess where the wind was blowing that night? Directly
toward
East.
Barb's.
Directly
Toward
to
east,
Barb's.
yeah.
Directly, Susan and I checked it up on a newspaper. The wind was blowing directly to their residence. And later on, you'll see that Barb makes the comment, when Stephen used to burn tires, the soot went on her house and she got really upset. There's no soot on her house. There's no blackening. There's nothing. And remember,
it would land on the cars too.
Yep, correct. So Blaine and Brendan, they're in bed, and their bedroom windows are facing towards the burn pit. But have a look at the next picture. So remember the detectives on November the 6th, they did a walkthrough. They did a walkthrough of the Yonder residence. And here are the bunk beds of Brendan Dassey and Blaine Dassey. And look where the window is. They are looking directly outside. And to the right-hand side is Stephen Avery's burn pit. They've got a prime view of the burn pit. That's why they asked, well, when you went to bed, did you notice anything? Now, come on, guys. Are you trying to tell me if you've ever had a neighbor a long distance away light a fire, what's the obvious thing that you detect?
The flames,
the smell,
the halo, the smell,
the
that
halo,
too.
the smell, the glow, right? No one detected anything, right? But have a look at this picture. This will crystallize it in your mind. That's why they asked the boys, or Blaine, well, did you notice anything when you went to bed? Right? So we'll just wait for the next picture. There you go. Guys, there's the boys' windows shown in red. And in yellow is Stephen's burn pit. They had a direct view to the burn pit, right? And the wind is blowing directly towards them, towards their house, right? Directly towards them. Now, if Stephen had a great big whopping fire, you're going to see it. You're going to smell it, right? No one said a thing. All the early statements, what fire? What are you talking about? But the other thing that you've got to realize is that Bear was there. And Barb has 2 dogs outside in that vicinity. Don't you think they're going to be barking and making a commotion if they smell an odor of a human being cremated? Nothing. Nothing. Susan, do you have any comments?
No. I mean, if it was giant, huge, whopping fire, yes, I think, the boys would have noticed it, but from their bedroom. But I don't think there was anyway. So
Yep. Yeah, correct. And 3 Revs asked, which bike is Brendan? Brendan said that his bike was broken. So you don't even know.
Yeah.
I do not know who. Yeah, I do not know which bike belongs to Brendan. He said, no, my bike was broken. Plus, he recanted about the whole collecting the mail story narrative as
the screaming.
Yep,
The
and that too. He
screaming
recanted the screaming, going to his uncle's, the whole lot. He recanted it, right? And plus, that photograph, I think, is November the 6th or November the 7th, done by Trooper Reese, right?
It's the 6th. Yeah,
You don't know where those bikes were between October the 31st to when the property was seized, right? Yeah, you've got no idea. But the important point is this. If there's a fire, Blaine would have noticed it, right? Brendan would have noticed it. The boys were in bed, right? And Bobby Dassey's bedroom is 1 up, right? So he would have noticed something, right?
I also think if Blaine came home and there was a fire going out there, I think it would have walked out there myself.
Yeah, correct. But
Probably.
the fact that he said in his DCI report, no, I just went home. I didn't see anybody outside. It makes you, you have to question the entire system, right? What Blaine was saying in court was totally wrong, totally debunked. He debunked himself. And had they called up Carmen would have destroyed their timeline, correct?
Absolutely destroyed it.
Absolutely destroyed the state's timeline. And it goes, no.
And the fire. And the fucking fire, pardon my language.
And the fire.
Damn it.
And the fire. And you'll see that's why it's so tragic with what happened to all the family members that were pressured to change their recollections to no fire. Oh, yeah, there was a fire. Susan.
At what time was it that Scott Taddick claimed that he saw this whopping fire? What time was that?
About 8 o'clock.
8 o'clock.
Yep.
Yeah.
Because he picked up Barb. He dropped off Barb, right? Then Barb stayed for a little while, then left at 9:06. So when Barb got dropped off by Scott Taddick, both Barb and Scott then say there was a fire. And remember that phone call where Barb says, oh, no. When Scott dropped me off, I saw the fire. You were there. And it can't be because her son is home and there's no fire, right? And if you listen to the call, Barb goes, I can't remember what I did yesterday. Right?
I almost think that what she saw happen the night before when Brendan was
one night. You got it, Jack 61.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
One night before. And if you think about it, we have undeniable evidence that Brendan was with Stephen at 8:44 on October the 30th, and they were cleaning up the yard.
That's right.
They were cleaning up the yard, and you can hear Brendan in the background, and Stephen is talking to Brendan, and Stephen even said in the garage, right? So if they transpose the events of October the 30th to the 31st, boom, you got them.
That's right.
There's a fire, right? And so everyone initially said, what fire are you talking about? I thought the fire was much later on, right? All right. But here's the other problem. Mike Corneli. If we have a look at the next slide. Cherie, do you see the material that's been highlighted?
Yes, I do.
You might have to blow it up a little bit. Well, the investigators, have a look who went to go and see him. Deidre, right? So the defense called up Corneli. So Deidre goes, what the fuck are they calling up Corneli for? So have a look what they asked him.
Is this right before Brendan's trial?
Yep. Yes. Look at the date.
Yeah.
Look at the date. Right? So they know that there's a phone call that in the DCI report on November the 7th, Corneli says, yeah, I spoke with Brendan on Halloween. I wanted to know where Blaine was. Now, the investigator, Deidre, goes, what the hell are they talking to Corneli for? Let's go for it.
On Friday, April 13th, 2007, at 13:30 hours, I, Deidre, did interview the following individual at his residence concerning this matter, Michael Corneli. I had been advised Corneli had been placed on the defense witness list and interviewed him for the purpose of learning what he would testify to. Corneli advised me he had not received a subpoena from the defense as yet and indicated the only defense representatives he had spoken with were representatives that were assigned to this case prior to counselors Fremgen and Edelstein. I asked Corneli if he had called Brendan on Halloween 2005. He stated he had made a call to Blaine shortly before 1800 hours on, he believed, 10/31/05. He did speak with Brendan at this time. Brendan advised Cornelia that Blaine was gone and Blaine had left shortly after 1700 hours. Cornelia indicated Brendan was quite animated about Blaine's appearance for Halloween. Cornelia indicated he had found this unusual as Brendan is not normally very talkative on the phone. He stated he and Brendan spoke for about 4 minutes. According to Cornelia's recollection, Brendan made comments like, "You should have seen him. He looked scary," referring to Blaine's appearance for trick-or-treating.
Okay. And what did Carmen say about Blaine? That
He was dressed up.
He was dressed up in a Halloween outfit, right? And what did Cornelia say? Oh, Brendan told me that, oh, Blaine looked really, really scary, as in he dressed up for Halloween. So Carmen...
Can I just say, he also almost made it sound like Brendan was really out of character here. But to see his brother dressed up in some scary costume, I can understand why Brendan would be describing that to Cornelia.
Yeah.
But animated.
I mean,
Sure.
And animated.
Yeah. So what? Yeah.
But the important thing is this: it's all corroborated, right? You got Cornelia calling Brendan because Cornelia wanted to speak with Blaine. Brendan says, no, my brother, he's gone trick-or-treating. Oh, but you should have seen my brother, his appearance, right? And what does Carmen say? I saw Blaine dressed up in a Halloween outfit. They all corroborate. And that's why what you're going to see later on in another podcast is going to make your blood boil, because Wiegert and Fassbender knew that call from Cornelia had to disappear. Right, Jack 61?
It did.
That call had to disappear. It didn't happen. It couldn't have happened.
This is supposedly when they're, killing her and doing all this horrible stuff. Yeah.
Roasting her in the fire.
100%. And raping Teresa Horbach.
Yeah.
Right.
You'll be shocked and disgusted with what Wiegert and then later Fallon did. That call there from Mike Cornelia, it didn't exist. It didn't happen. Susan.
No, I'm good though. I was
Okay.
just reading Justin Stricken's question in.
Yep. Awesome.
I did have a comment about this report. Yeah, I mean, if you look at it, this is page 1109 in the CASO, the original CASO investigative report. This report only goes to page 1117. So here we are at this late stage, and they're all of a sudden worried about Cornelia and this call.
Oh yeah.
What? They're fixing. In fact, why am I remembering Brendan's trial started on the 11th April? I don't remember. I know it was really close to trial time.
Yes.
If not already started.
Yes, but notice Deidre wanted to know what Cornelia was going to talk about, right? And
Right.
It wasn't Fremgen and Edelston who called him, but it was his previous attorney, right? Kaczynski, right? Because obviously Brendan said, well, Mike called me at around about 6 o'clock, and I said, no, my brother's gone trick-or-treating. So these guys want to know what the hell Cornelia's going to say in court. And it becomes very, very important. Do we have a question?
Yeah, we've got a question from Justin. All this talk about the fire, it seems like you all don't believe it happened. That Avery has given an affidavit stating it did. What was the significance of bringing it up?
Well, the thing is that Stephen got convinced by his sister that he had the fire on October the 31st.
There's no doubt.
That's
he
what
didn't
it
think
was.
he had it. He didn't think he had it that day at all. Yeah.
No. And it's likely he had the fire one day prior on the 30th.
I think so.
I mean, and I have
certainly we can't prove it, but we know we know that the memory of Blaine and Brendan and Barbara, all of them, and I don't mean this as any disrespect. Some people just don't have good memories. They just don't.
Yep.
That's fact
Correct.
of life.
Because I contacted Barb. I said, Barb, what did you do regarding a phone call? The phone call. She goes, oh, I phoned up Stephen on my mobile phone and I spoke to him on his mobile phone on October the 31st. And I said, make sure that my son is home by 10. Except there are no phone calls. There are no mobile calls from Barb to Stephen. None. But one
Is
day
there one on
prior,
the 30th?
one
Okay.
day prior,
Yeah.
there is.
Yes.
Yeah.
There is. Right? And her son, Brendan, is over by Stephen in his garage at 8:44. And now, when you listen to the responses of Brendan, oh, Brendan, what time did you get home? About 9:30. It all matches. It's the 30th,
The
not
30th.
the 31st.
That's right.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right? And they're all getting it wrong. And Stephen goes, what are you talking about? Oh, no. Remember me and Scott, Scott dropped me off and I saw you standing there next to the fire. And he goes, huh? Oh, then Brendan was with me. Brendan definitely was with him one day prior.
That's right.
On the 30th. But these guys are getting all these things wrong. And I'll prove it to you in the next couple of slides. Do we have another question?
Yeah, from Alligator 57, did Cornelia use cell phone to make the call? If so, where are the phone records, or were their phone records preserved?
Yeah, he can't find that call. He can't find that call. He can't remember whether he used the house phone at the hotel or his cell phone to call the Yonder residents. But there's no doubt the call took place because it can be backed up independently with the contents of the call.
Yeah.
Cornelia's not going to call Brendan about October the 31st, Halloween, after Halloween, correct?
No.
He's going to call, where's Blaine? Because Blaine normally calls Cornelia at nighttime when he gets home from school. They do it constantly regarding the calls. And what does Brendan say? Oh, my brother, you should have seen him. It looks real scary. He's obviously dressed out in an outfit, probably got makeup on. What does Carmen do? Carmen independently retells, yeah, he was wearing a costume, an outfit for Halloween. So it all matches up. But they can't find the call. And Cornelia said, hey, I use Sprint Mobile. This has happened to me before. Some of my calls don't appear, right? So there's no doubt the call occurred, but the state don't want it to occur because it destroys their timeline, right? But later on, you'll see what Tom Fallon actually says regarding that call. So look at this. Not only did Blaine get the time wrong or when he went home, he also got other events wrong, horribly wrong. So Kratz asked Bobby Dassey, and this is very important. Kratz asked Bobby Dassey, well, what did you do when you came home, right? From hunting, bow hunting. Susan, are you able to read out Kratz's part?
Yes, Doc.
And Jack, would you like to read Bobby Dassey's part, the responses?
Sure.
Okay.
Can I ask a question first, Doc?
Absolutely.
Did the defense call Cornelia at Brendan's trial?
Yeah, he was there. He testified.
Okay.
He
I just can't
testified.
remember.
And he testified. And Fallon's going, oh shit. Cornelia's obviously got everything right. He said everything right. It backed up with what Brendan was saying. Because remember, they got all the transcripts of Brendan, right? And you will not believe what Mark Weger did to him on May 13th, right, Jack 61, regarding the Cornelia call.
Oh, yeah.
We'll show you after what he did. You just cannot believe these guys were open. It was open slather. The way they manipulated certain witnesses was shocking. But let's have a look at this. This is Bobby Dassey saying what he did when he came home.
All right. After deer hunting, what did you do?
I came home and I laid down and I went to sleep again.
What time did you get home? Do you recall?
It was 5-ish.
Now, when you drove back home at about 5 o'clock in the afternoon, was Ms. Halbach's vehicle still visible?
No.
What did you do when you got home?
Watched TV for a little bit, then I went to bed.
Did you go to sleep?
Yes.
How long did you sleep?
Probably 3 hours.
Okay. So I'm looking at this thinking, now remember, Blaine is home probably 8:15, between 8:15 and 8:30. Look what Bobby Dassey said. Came home at about 5, watched a bit of TV, went to bed, woke up about 3 hours later. What's 5 plus 3.5? 8.5.
8.5?
8.5. That's right.
Which time lapse when Blaine was home? What
Yeah.
did Blaine say in his affidavit on November the 7th? Because when I got home, I saw Brendan, Bobby, and Barb, and they're all up.
Yep.
Which coincides and overlaps exactly when Blaine got home and got dropped off by Carmen, not 11. So all that thing about seeing a fire and Stephen at 11 is complete garbage, is completely debunked. And
Yep.
now you now have another independent witness, right, Susan? Bobby himself. He goes, yeah, I came home, watched a bit of TV, went in his bed, woke up about 3 hours later. And when Blaine comes home from trick-or-treating, who does he say that he sees? His brother. His brother.
I just
So it
want
all-
to answer Cam
Yeah.
Sutherland here.
Yep.
What time were they trick-or-treating? Were they not a bit old for that? Well, Blaine and his buddy were chaperoning his buddy's
younger
two younger
brothers.
brothers.
The younger brothers, correct.
They took them out trick-or-treating. So
That's correct.
That's right. That's
Yep.
right.
That is
plus
correct.
they were young. They were young teenagers. I mean,
16.
16-year-olds. A lot of them
Yep.
go trick-or-treating as well.
Yep.
Yeah.
Carmen said they were chaperoning the younger boys, the younger brothers. Correct.
Right.
Yeah. Just as reference, when I was growing up, about 13 or 14 was about it for us for trick or treating. Maybe 15, but typically that's when we stopped and
Yeah.
walk with younger kids or help give out candy.
Yeah.
We didn't.
You're never
we
going to
didn't
let.
go.
No.
But
In-
going with a couple of little kids, that makes total sense.
No,
That's right.
in Australia, over the last while, we do trick or treating too, right? And what we do in Australia is that we actually put a sign on our front fence to say trick or treat friendly, which means you got young kids, yeah, bring them over.
We've got candy.
We got candy, right? And my daughter and my wife, they used to buy a whole collection of candies, little toys, because the little kids used to go down the street, right, all dressed up as witches and goblins, but they were always accompanied with parents, older people, older. The parents stayed outside, watched their kids knock on the door, get a trick or treat, and that's it. They just chaperoned, right? That's exactly what Blaine was doing with Jason and the younger boys, right? So now we can now solve a dilemma, a big dilemma that Blaine got wrong again in the court. So now you can see that Bobby comes home, watches a bit of TV, sleeps for about 3 hours, and wakes up. He has to get ready for work. Blaine sees Bobby. Blaine cannot see Bobby. Do you get it? At 11, because Bobby's already gone to work. Right? Bobby's already left. He's already gone for work. He leaves at about 10:30, something like that. Yeah.
Right.
I think this deserves one further comment before we move on. From you want to read this, Susan?
Justin Stricken says yes. That's not to say all witness testimony is unreliable, but many studies have proven that in many instances it is. I wasn't referring to any singular person.
Yes.
And that's very true. Witness
Yeah.
testimony is some of your worst evidence in
So wrong.
Correct.
so many
Correct.
cases. Yeah.
Correct. So my aim was to get corroboration, overlapping testimony, overlapping statements. I saw him, I saw you. And the independent reports, get it? So therefore you've got corroboration. You never must look at one person's statements and say, that's the truth, because it's not, right? But that's what they presented in court. No one said, except Strang. Strang knew that Blaine, there was something wrong with Blaine, because Strang kept on asking Blaine questions, saying about, are you sure about that? You said this, you said that. So now we know that Bobby is awake just after 8, right? At the same time that Blaine is there. We can now solve a big dilemma, which is what happened during Stephen Avery's trial. So if we have a look at the next slide. Would you like to, who would like to read Strang?
I can do it. I can ask the question. Yeah.
Okay. And Cherie, would you like to read Blaine's answers?
Okay.
Okay. Let's go for it.
Okay. You and Brendan walk down the road together and you both go into your house.
Yes.
You remember because you were asked just a week later that when you walked in, Bobby was home.
Yes.
Bobby was sleeping.
Yes.
Bobby was not out deer hunting.
Yes.
You and Brendan woke Bobby up.
Yes.
Had to be Blaine when Blaine got back. You remember doing that?
Yeah.
All right. So do you see what happened?
Yep.
Right? In court, Blaine's going, oh, when me and my brother got off the bus and we went home, oh, we saw Bobby. He was in his bed.
Yep.
And we woke him up. And they're going, wait a minute. Your brother said he went hunting, bow hunting. Are you now saying that when you got home off the bus, you saw your brother in bed? Yes. And he wasn't bow hunting? Yes, he wasn't bow hunting. But do you see how Blaine got it wrong?
Completely wrong.
When Blaine got home from trick-or-treating, his brother was home in his bedroom.
Probably asleep, and Blaine woke him up.
Yep.
3 hours later.
Exactly right. Not when he came off the bus. Because then they're going, huh? How can that be? So Strang asked Bobby, right, in the same trial to resolve it, right? So if we have a look at the next slide, it all makes perfect sense now, right? Susan, would you like to read out a Strang? And
Sure.
I can read out the answer. It's a simple one, this one.
And if Blaine told the police that you were still sleeping at 3:40 or 3:45 when he got home from the school bus, and that you awoke after he got home, Blaine is just mistaken?
Yes.
That's all I have. Thanks.
Right? So quite clearly, they resolved it. It's been resolved. How did it get resolved? By looking at Carmen's report, what Carmen said, and Blaine's initial statement, right? But in the trial, he got major times and events completely ass about face. Talking about his brother, that when I got home from school, my brother was sleeping in his bed. We woke him up. Nope. They woke Bobby up, or Bobby was in the process of waking up when he came back from trick or treating. And it all makes logical sense. Guys, do you agree?
Yep. Absolutely.
Yep.
All right. Could have been the day before.
Could well have been.
Oh, it's Sunday. They didn't have school.
Yeah, there wouldn't have been a school night. So now, oh, sorry, Susan, did you have any comments?
No. Okay.
So now we can work out a timeline. Look at these points, right? We can now add Carmen and Cornelia into this. So I'll read it out, right? Blaine, and stop me if there's anything controversial or you don't agree with, right? And even in chat. So this is what I've been able to work out. Blaine and Brendan get off the school bus at about 3:45 and they go directly home. So they're home by about 3:50, about 10 to 4. Barb arrives home from work at about 4:50. That's her normal time that she gets home. They got a clock. She's got a clock. So that's what time she normally gets home, at about 4:50. Bobby, Brian, Blaine, and Brendan, they're all home, right? They can vouch for each other. You read their reports, they name each other, right? Including Barb. All my boys were home. Brian has a quick shower and leaves to go to his girlfriend's place, straight away debunking what Brendan said. That, remember, oh, I spoke with Brian and he was working on his car, and they asked him, well, how come your brother didn't hear the screaming? Oh, he had the radio on. Complete, utter rubbish.
Yeah.
And yet you have to ask yourself, where is Brendan getting all these ideas from? And the answer is, he's making them up, right? You got Brian's report, and you got Barb, you got the others that said, nah, he had a quick shower and he left. Now, Scott Tadich comes along, picks up Barb to go visit his mum because she had back surgery in the hospital at about 5:15 p.m. Now, Blaine leaves for trick-or-treating at around about 5:25. Brendan is home, right? He's home. Carmen absolutely complements this whole timeline by saying, I picked up Blaine between 5:30 and 6. So the whole thing works perfectly. Like Carmen didn't say, I picked up Blaine at 4 or 8 o'clock. No. Everything works sequentially. Jack 61.
Just for context, I think we should add in, because I think we can logically add this in. So after Blaine gets off the phone with his buddy, he's sure to get a ride. He goes about getting his costume on, makeup,
Yes.
or whatever he used, right? So
Excellent point.
He's busy the next, several minutes, I would imagine. I don't know
Yep.
how long exactly, but,
Yep.
let's just say 15, 20 minutes at least.
Yep.
That just
Yep.
adds a little fabric to what's going on.
And his brother notes it.
That's right.
You can't believe what Tom Fallon has said that Brendan has now done.
Sure I can.
Yep.
But
you
yeah.
cannot believe, but I won't disclose it now. And you think to yourself, how the hell did you come up with that? Right? But we'll talk about that in a minute. So, Carmen notes that Blaine is wearing an Halloween outfit, right? When she came onto the property, she noted no smoke or fire. Now, remember, you need a big, great, whopping fire to cremate a human being to bone fragments. Where the hell is this fire? Right? The timeline is being pushed and pushed and pushed. That can't be good. We absolutely know that Jody calls Stephen at 5:36, speaks to about for 15 minutes. That's timed, timestamped, no dispute. 6 minutes later, Stephen calls his brother Chuck on the cell phone, speaks to with 5 minutes. That's 20 minutes more, because there's 6 minutes in between. Nearly 26 minutes have gone by, right? Now, Cornelie calls Brendan and a landline around about 6 o'clock. And Brendan mentions to Blaine that, oh, you should see my brother. He looked really, really scary, referring to his appearance. That is corroborated by Carmen, who mentions that Blaine is wearing a Halloween outfit. And Jack 61, you said a brilliant point. Brendan noted that his brother was wearing an outfit, which means that Brendan had to have been at home. Had to have been at home, right? So Brendan's timeline is being pushed out. That can't be good. If you're raping and murdering, that cannot be good.
It's devastating to the case.
Yes, it is. It is. So you've got all these time points when Jody calls Stephen. You can't hear Brendan in the background. And it's just normal idle chit-chat between Jody and Stephen. Now, in the meantime, Barb returns home with Scott, and they allegedly note a fire in Stephen Avery's burn pit at around about 8 o'clock. Scott departs, but Brendan is home. That's important. Brendan is home. Okay, even Barb notes him. So if we have a look at the next slide. So these guys are all corroborating each other in different reports. So Carmen drops off Blaine at around about 8:15, 8:30. I reckon it's closer to 8:15, right? She notes no smoke or fire. So several hours have gone by. Still, there's no smoke, there's no fire. Now, after Blaine has been dropped off, he sees Brendan, Bobby, and Barb. They're all home. But wait a minute, isn't Brendan meant to be helping Stephen in raping, torturing, dismembering, shooting, cremating, and dropping Teresa's RAV4 at the pit, and then them walking from the pit back to the trailer? Jack 61.
That's right. All of that, every bit of that's supposed to be going on during
Yep.
this time frame that we've been
Yep.
talking about.
And
No way.
no fucking way. And independent witnesses saying, no, I saw him. No, I saw her. Independent reports are saying the same things, right? Now, here's important. Barb tells Blaine and Brendan that she's going to go and see Scott soon, right? And this corroborates Carmen's earlier drop-off time for Blaine, because there's no way that Barb can see Blaine if Blaine comes home at 11. You get it?
Absolutely.
Right? Barb saying, I spoke to my sons, right? I'm going to be going seeing Scott. So they're seeing each other, right? Which totally destroys the late timeline and seeing the fire and Stephen. But they allowed it in court. Nobody did this to say, wait a minute, this is not adding up. No one did. Now, here's probably the most critical call of the lot. Jody calls Stephen again at 8:57. Talk for 15 minutes. There's no question. Steve's outside. He says, I'm tidying up a little bit in the yard. And he even says, I'm next to the golf cart, wherever the golf cart was. He sees Barb leave to go to Scott at 9:06. And we know, how did he know this? Because he's outside. He's outside. He sees his sister go. He knows what his sister drives. And what did he say to Jody just before? Remember what he said, Jack 61 guys? Scotty. She's always at Scott's. Correct?
That's right.
Right? And there he sees his sister drive off at 9:06. Right? Now, they spoke with Scott, and Scott said, no. Barb stayed with me overnight. She didn't come back home. She came back home at midnight on the 30th. So even Barb got it mixed up, right? So I looked at all the timelines. The only time that Brendan could be with Stephen is after the, see if you agree with me, after the Cornelie call and before Barb gets back home. Would you guys agree? That time period there.
Yep.
After the Cornelie call, because Brendan's home, receiving the call from Cornelie, and Barb sees her son when she gets home just around 8. Would you guys agree?
Yeah.
That's right.
Yeah. So you got around about a 2-hour window for all the shenanigans that allegedly took place between Brendan, Stephen, and Teresa Hallbach and her RAV4, everything.
And then Brendan goes home and is just acting normal.
100%. And he's meant to be at a burn pit with a fire. He's just put Teresa Hallbach in the fire. No one notes anything, no smell. And he's in the same bedroom as his brother Blaine. Right? So through a whole series of miscommunications and them getting time events wrong, the state convinced a jury and a judge that Stephen and Brendan had done all these things to Teresa Hallbach, right? Now, here's what is important, and now it makes perfect sense. Remember, Jack 61, remember, guys, Fassbender and Wigger kept on talking about, did you hear any phone calls? Remember? Did you
Yep.
hear any phone calls from Jody, or did Stephen call Chuck? And
That's right.
Brendan's giving all sorts of answers. He's got no idea. Correct?
That's right.
Now, think about this, and this is crucial. If Brendan is at home prior to 6 o'clock, if Brendan is at home prior to 8, would you guys agree he's got no idea about those phone calls, correct?
Completely agree. Absolutely.
He's not there.
He's not there.
He is not there. And yet what he says later on proves that he's 100% guessing and completely wrong. The kid is exonerated. He's got no idea, right? But what I did is, if we have a look at the next slide, I only wish Brendan's attorneys had done this. Right? Took me a little while to put it all together, but if you work it out, this is a timeline. So if you look in the blue boxes, between 3:45 and 6 p.m., nobody sees Brendan Dassey leave the residence, the household. Oh, guys, I just need to go out. I need to go to Stevens. No one. No one sees him take a bike. No one sees him goes to the letterbox. Nothing. So he's home between 3:45, or he's got eyes on him between 3:45 and 6 p.m. because he answers the call to Keneally. Now, have a look at this. The person who is home between both blue boxes is his brother Bobby, right? So his brother comes home at about 5:30, watches a bit of TV, goes to bed, then wakes up, right, and is seen by Blaine, by Brendan, by Barb, right? So Bobby never says, yeah, I saw my brother Brendan go out and return. Nobody sees him go out. Now, look at those phone calls down below when Jody calls Stephen and Stephen calls Chuck, right? They are between 5:36 to 6:02. Brendan's got no recollections of those calls. Brendan cannot be over with Stephen. Guys, would you agree? Brendan cannot be there. Brendan
Agree.
is at home. So he's got no. If Brendan said, yeah, Jody phoned up at this, around about this time, and said such and such and such, oh yeah, then just a couple of minutes later, Steve calls his brother Chuck, then you're going, oh my God, he's over there. But he's not. He's home. He's getting the call from Keneally. Then when Barb comes home at around about 8, because she's dropped off by Scott, Barb sees her sons. The boys are there. So Brendan is home by 8. So therefore, the window of opportunity to have committed rape, torture, shooting, dismemberment, moving of the body, cremation, going to the pit, disconnecting the battery, removing the license plate, walking all the way back, had to have occurred between 6 and 8. But no one sees a fire. Blaine doesn't see a fire. Carmen doesn't see a fire. No one sees a fire, right? Now, we'll read some more. You'll see what Barb says, right? So this timeline is very, very crucial because it looks at Blaine, Brendan, Bobby, Brian, Barb, Cornelie, and Stephen. Guys, what do you think?
I think it's dead clear. Brendan wasn't there.
Brendan was not there.
Nope.
And Blaine said, I was in bed by 9:30, 10 o'clock, and I didn't know anything. And
That's right.
guess which bedroom Blaine's shares a bedroom with his brother Brendan.
Brendan. That's right.
Yep. Sorry, Susan.
If you look at Brendan's first statement, I think it will corroborate this.
Correct. 100% correct. Yep. So the only timeline I could work out where potentially Brendan is with Stephen is after 6 and before 8, right? But here's the tragedy. He's there with Stephen at 8:44 one day prior. So did all of these events occur one day prior before Teresa got there? As in Stephen and his nephew Brendan being in the garage, collecting some rubbish, whatever, and I'm not sure
Cleaning the floor, cleaning
the garage floor. And Bob,
burning
phones. Yep.
Tires and
Yep.
the seat
Yep.
and the
Correct.
cabinet, whatever, cleaning
Correct.
up the yard.
Yep.
Yeah.
Correct. So in other words, you either believe that after 6 and before 8, all this shenanigans went down and Brendan comes home and no one notes a thing. They're all there. They're all there. And Bobby goes to work at 9:30. So Bobby's around the house. He's a hunter. He doesn't go.
And he's supposedly just raped a woman, the first sex he's ever had in his life, right?
But not only that, witness to a shooting, a
Witness
headshot,
to a shooting,
Ultra-violence. Ultra-violence.
Unbelievable ultra violence. He just comes home. His mum's there. His brothers are there. And remember, Bobby goes to work at 9:30. So he's there for that entire time period, right? He notes nothing. He goes, no, my brother was the same. Blaine says, I'm in bed by 9:30, 10 o'clock. Tomorrow, they're going to go up and get up and go to school. It's a normal school night, right? So because of those 2 timestamps of the phone calls, we know that Brendan is not there. And we know when Barb leaves. So Brendan is covered for that entire period. And no one sees Brendan leave the house, right? So he's accounted for. So you either believe he's doing ninja activity between after 6 and before 8, or the kid's completely innocent. Do we have another question?
And you know, Barb never said she was home from what, around 8 o'clock until 9:06 or something, 9:06.
Correct.
She never said Brendan went out by Stephen then.
No.
No.
Do you want to read out Justin's question?
Yeah, Justin says, I'm not sure I see the relevance of Brendan recanting giving Avery a new trial because that wasn't used against him in his own trial.
Except Jack 61, you want to say it?
Well, I don't know if I'm going to say what you're going to say, but the bigger point is, remember March 2nd, 2006. So
what they said. Yeah.
This 22-minute press conference that Kratz had, I'm sorry, Justin, you cannot tell me that it wasn't used against him. You cannot unring that. You cannot unring what that press conference did to that area. You just can't.
It destroyed him.
Yeah.
And don't worry, we're going to read the entire thing out. What Kratz wrote, the charges against Stephen, against Brendan. We're going to read all of that out, and also we're also going to read the trial testimony, what he said during the trial. Now, this is why it's so devastating. Even though Brendan wasn't used, he didn't have to be used. He was used by proxy. You know why? Because they had item FL, they had the hood latch swab.
That's right.
And what do you think? What do you think was the trigger for the jury item FL, the bullet with Teresa's DNA?
That's right.
They're going, shit, Brendan was over there. Oh my God, there was a shooting. So even though Brendan didn't appear, item FL did. And item FL was debunked. It's junk. And this thing about the hood latch, you can argue the hood latch is more problematic, right? So without Brendan, you got no narrative. You got no idea what took place. And B, with Brendan, you got item FL and the hood latch swab, which was used effectively in the trial, right? But you've also got his brother, Blaine, saying things which are impossible. Impossible. They are debunked and provenly, demonstrably false. The kid needs no, he doesn't need a new trial. He needs to go home. He needs to go home, right?
Yeah,
If I present that timeline, if I was his attorney and I presented that timeline and I call up Carmen, it's party over. It's party over. Because why? Blaine saw nothing. And you look at the original statements by all the key witnesses, they saw no fire, right? And then Candy comes along years after the fact and says, "Oh yeah, great big whopping fire." She likely saw another great big whopping fire, but it wasn't October the 31st. It couldn't have been. You got Carmen coming and going twice over a couple of hour period. Do you think Stephen had to have this fire going to cremate Teresa Hallbach and turn it
God.
into bone fragments?
Some kind of giant fire. I mean, even if Carmen may not have saw a fire, being down at the end of that road, she was still seeing the halo and the glow.
Yep.
It was nighttime. It was dark. Come on.
Hell, what did Josh Rodon say? I saw a fire from where he was,
right,
to somewhere close to where Stephen was. Oh, but it was only a small one. It was contained to a burn barrel.
Yep.
And you trying to tell me that nobody noted this fire going on all the time when the boys got home? And
right.
when Blaine went to bed and Brendan went to bed, and I just showed you their window was facing the burn pit.
And
Susan.
could it have actually been on Sunday that Radant saw the fire?
Yeah, you never know, because Radon said no, it was only small, was contained to a burn barrel. That's all I saw. And
we know he was pressured, just like all the many other witnesses were pressured. Yeah,
to make the fire bigger. Correct. Now we know that there had to be some type of fire going on at either on the Sunday or the Monday. I'm leaning more towards the Sunday. Why? Because we see the seat, it's burnt. But the seat is not even in the burn pit, it's towards the side. Right? And what did Earl notice Brendan did on the Wednesday? Go to the burn pit and take out the tire rims. Took the rims out. Right? These guys are getting everything wrong. Right? But they were used against them because their memories, they can't remember exactly what day. Yet, Carmen is never called up.
No.
She would have destroyed their timeline completely.
Yeah, absolutely.
Right? Cornelie testified, which made Garn change the time frame when Cornelie called. He had to. Right? And so now look what they showed in Cam. Look at all the things we've just gone through and debunked. Look what they showed in Cam. Have you got the next clip, Jack 61?
I do, but I want to make a statement, and I don't know if you're going to lead to what I'm going to say, and if you are, I apologize, but if I don't say it now, I'll forget. So think about Blaine's statement at trial, this 11 o'clock deal. So what was said to him about what the police knew about Blaine and Cornelie? Was he threatened with that?
Well, there was a comment in a DCI report that said, "Oh, Barb, we noted that there was inappropriate touching between Cornelie and your son." Remember? It's in a report.
Yep. That's right.
It's in a report. So isn't that interesting?
Who knows? I'm so disgusted. I'm just disgusted with that whole situation. But I just have to wonder if that was used against him, because he's a freaking kid, man.
He was a kid. Yep, he was a kid. And not only that, remember what he said in the trial when Strang questioned him? Because did the investigators go to your face and were really angry? And he said yes.
Yep.
They were shouting at him, saying, "Stop defending your uncle."
And what has Barb always said? We were all pressured.
All pressured.
Right. Oh, yeah.
100% all pressured. So now let's have a look at that little snippet in Cam. You now know that we've completely debunked Blaine, right? Have a look what the the case enthusiasts say. We'll just
Yeah.
wait for that little clip. Now,
You
remember,
ready?
yeah, the majority of people aren't going to do what we just did to find out whether what Blaine said was 100% correct and accurate. Have a look what they showed him in Cam.
Here we go.
Yep.
What time did you go home to your place that night?
About 9:30.
Was Steven out there when you went home?
Yeah. Because he said he was going to watch the fire until it burnt down a little bit more.
We even have other witnesses seeing Avery after Brendan went home, still at this fire, still standing there looking at it.
Avery was seen by his nephew Blaine standing by that fire as late as 11 o'clock, 11:30 at night. He was there. He had a fire. Her bones were.
Oh my God.
I want to puke.
Now, this is a counter documentary to Mam, saying that Mam was all bullshit. And what did the case enthusiasts say? We had additional witnesses who saw Stephen at a fire. Who did they choose as that witness?
Blaine.
Brendan Dassey.
That's right.
And what
And
do we?
these people, these case enthusiasts,
Oh my God.
supposedly are very educated on the case, right?
They obviously
They
didn't
think-
read the common report,
Well,
right?
I'll bet you they did
Yeah.
and did exactly what
care.
the cop. They don't care. They just ignored it. Put it aside.
Yep, correct. But it goes to show that if you don't know all the background, it's very dangerous when you present information like this in a documentary, knowing that you are wrong.
I can tell you one thing for sure. Even if they didn't know it, Brenda knew it.
You betcha.
She knew it.
Brenda definitely knew it. Brenda knows this case inside and out.
She showed
does.
all her documents and volumes of stuff.
She's got everything.
She's got more information, a lot more information than what we've got. She's been able to get it.
Yep. So it's quite clear that those case enthusiasts got it completely wrong, right? 100% wrong. So they blamed Mam for hijacking our amygdalas, but we've just shown through their official reports that what Blaine said about the fire, seeing Stephen at the fire, 11 o'clock, is complete garbage. The kid was in bed and no one noted anything. And just to prove it, have a look at the next report, right? The agents go and speak with Bob. Look at the date of that DCI report, the 9th. This is not months down the track. This is only a couple of days after they find the cremains. And they speak to Bob. They want to know, well, Bob, what the hell happened, right? So if we have a look at the next page, Susan, do you see that?
I do, Doc.
Would you like to read this out, please?
Sure. Bobby Dassey, who is her son, has a main hunting spot on Highway 42 located off of Nuclear Road, and the land belongs to Bobby's friend Mike. This hunting spot is where Bobby hunts ducks and geese. Bobby has a new hunting spot behind Scott Toddick's house, which is where Yonda had been staying the last few days. Bobby has bow hunted for deer at Toddick's place one time so far this season. Capitani asked if it was Monday, October 31st, which was the day that Teresa Habach went missing. She stated that Bobby did go hunting that afternoon, but she didn't know if he went to Toddick's bow hunting or if he went to Mike's on Highway 42, duck and goose hunting. She stated she got home from work on that Monday at approximately 5 o'clock, and all 4 of her boys were home. When she arrived home, Bobby was taking a shower after just getting home from hunting. Her friend, Toddick, picked her up at approximately 5:15 to 5:30 and they went to the hospital that Monday night. She returned to the residence at approximately 8 p.m., and her friend, Tadek, dropped her back off at home, and then he departed. She was not certain which of her boys were home when she arrived at 8 p.m., but believes the younger two boys, Blaine and Brendan, were home when she arrived. When she arrived home at approximately 8 p.m. Monday, October 31, she did not recall seeing anyone having a bonfire or fire in the area, particularly Stephen Avery. She has not seen Stephen have a fire behind his residence at all, and she has not seen Stephen burning his trash out in front of the burn barrel in the last several weeks. She has not heard from any of her boys that Stephen had a burn going behind his residence in the last week or two. The Capitani asked her if she would know if someone was burning tires close to her house. She said that she would smell it and her whole house would stink, and she believed she would know if Stephen was burning tires. But she confirmed that she did not see any fire on that Monday behind Stephen's house. However, Yonda stated she is not home very often, so she would not know if Stephen was burning tires over the last week. Yonda burns her trash every week and a half or 2 weeks in her burn barrel.
Yeah, and we stop there. We stop there. So it's quite clear in an earlier statement done by Barb, she noted no fire, correct? And she noted when she came home, she noted her sons.
She didn't smell any rubber?
Nothing.
Burning rubber? Yeah.
Nothing.
Nothing whatsoever. Nothing. So if there was a fire, it had to be between the time that she had left and come back, because she wouldn't have noticed it.
I think if it was Sunday, she wasn't home because
That's
she
right.
called Stephen.
That's correct.
100% agree.
Yep. You're 100%
Completely
correct.
agree.
You got it. You got it. Yeah. So in other words, I'm having an awful feeling that these events took place on the Sunday, not the Monday.
So do I.
And they got it transposed, because remember, they're doing the same things all the time. What was the common complaint by Stephen? That Barb never was home. Barb was always going to see Scott. So one day blends into the other. But the nice thing is, we've got overlaps between different people in the Yonda residence. And then you've got Bobby Dassey, who goes to work at about 9:30, right? So he leaves to go out. Now, remember, if Stephen is cremating Teresa Orbach, you got fire, you got smell, you got smoke. Have a look what Bobby Dassey says. If we have a look at the next report, right? They question Bobby. The Kitty and Eric Loy question Bobby on November the 23rd. So things are still fresh in his mind. And if you just raise it up a little bit, Cherie, do you see the part that's in yellow?
Down at the bottom?
Yeah, down at the bottom. Can you read it up?
All right. Eric then asked Bobby if he remembers seeing a fire on Monday the 31st. Bobby stated he did not recall seeing a fire on Halloween.
Yeah, and then the next bit, sorry.
He thought the fire was on Tuesday or Wednesday.
So wait a minute. You've now got Barb in her early statement says, I didn't see any fire. I didn't note any tire burning. You got Bobby who leaves work 9:30, something around that time. He leaves. He doesn't note anything. So there's something not right here. All the early reports are saying, what are you talking about? I thought the fire was later on. And because these guys are out, if Stephen has a small fire to burn brush or rubbish, you're not going to note it, right? The fire goes half an hour, done, finished, gone.
Probably not.
Done. Right? And Stephen said, I burn one tire at a time. I burn one tire at a time. Right? And even he said the tire doesn't get very hot, only lasts for a few minutes and then it burns out. Right? So quite clearly, the early
I don't know about
reports,
that. I think a tire would burn longer than a few minutes.
Well, it depends on the tire, how hot the coals are. I mean, I've seen them go up in 10, 12 minutes, and I've seen other tires
Really?
oh yeah. Then I've had other tires that burn for 20 or 30 minutes.
Yeah, this is what Stephen said, Susan. I haven't personally seen a tire burn to completion. This is what Stephen was saying. He goes, when I burn a tire, I burn one at a time, right? So the early reports from the people that are there, they go, what fire? What fire? So now let's get back into the interrogation. Okay, so now we're back on March the 1st, the questioning Brendan.
Give me
Now
just 1 second. I got to take
Yep.
this down.
No
I'll
hassles. Now
figure
we've
it out.
got all this information, and I showed you the timeline. So keep in the back of your mind, Brendan cannot be aware of any phone calls between Jody and Stephen and Chuck. Why? Because he's home on both occasions. The investigators ask him a very important question, right? Who would like to do Fassbender?
I could do Fassbender.
Cherie, would you like to do Brendan?
Sure.
And Susan, would you like to do Weegett when he comes up?
You bet.
Okay, let's go for it.
We're back on March 1st,
Yep, we're back
2006.
on the interrogation.
Okay. Sometime during that evening, did someone come down to Stephen's trailer or in that area?
No.
You don't. You remember seeing? Do you remember seeing anyone come down there and talk to Stephen for a bit?
No.
Do you know if anyone else saw anything?
No.
Uh-oh. You know what the problem is, right?
Oh, yeah.
There's a huge problem. Who was meant to be down there chit-chatting with Stephen?
Fabian and
Earl
Earl.
and Fabian, yep.
Earl and Robert Fabian, right? But here is another shit show of monumental proportions. So who do? They call up Robert Fabian during the Stephen Avery trial, right? Susan, would you read out Kratz and
Sure.
Strang? And Jack, would you like to read out the answers? So they call up Robert Fabian during the trial and they ask him, look what Kratz asked Robert Fabian.
Tell the jury what you remember about that burn barrel at about 5:20 p.m. on the 31st of October.
When me and Earl had pulled up on the golf cart, we had stopped in between the house and the garage. Between the house and the garage. And the smoke from the burn barrel was blowing right in my face. So I told Earl to move ahead. Really?
Okay. And then Strang asked
Strang.
Fabian, you certainly saw no larger fire going in a burn area?
No, I did not.
Didn't hear any screaming?
No, I did not.
Didn't hear any gunshots coming from that area?
No, I did not.
Oh, no. So we've got this real bizarre situation, right? Remember what Brendan said? Oh, I went to knock on my uncle's door. This is 5:20, right? Remember, Blaine goes trick-or-treating in 10 minutes time, around about 10 minutes time, and Cornelia's going to ring up at 6. Remember what Brendan said? Oh, I got the mail, went down, saw the smoking burn barrel, and I noticed all the electronics in there, etc., etc. Now, Earl, Robert Fabian is saying him and Earl noticed a smoking burn barrel at 5:20. But did you notice, did Earl or Robert mention Brendan Dassey, seeing Brendan?
No.
Did I mention Brendan?
No.
What time was that first call with Jody?
At 5:36.
36. Yep.
Okay.
Right? At 5:36. Right?
Well, I think Fabian's statement about the smoke blowing in from the burn barrel right into his face. I mean, you can see the diagram. I'll blow it up a little bit.
Yeah, correct. Because the wind was blowing in the opposite direction. It wouldn't have been blowing in his face, right? And
No.
Kathleen Zellner actually debunked this by looking at the wind directions. But here's the point. Did Brendan say he saw anybody else
No.
talking to Stephen?
No.
So
No,
but
and if you read all of the accounts of Earl and Fabian, this did not happen on Monday, the 31st.
No, it didn't.
I'm glad you asked there. I'm glad you asked. So what do? Now, if we ever look at the next picture, right, the next diagram, so the investigators are going, huh? Smoking burn barrel, right? So they go question everybody. They go and actually question Robert Fabian. They ask him about what's going on here about you and Earl and rabbit hunting and a smoking burn barrel. So if you just slide up the picture a little bit, right? Jack 61, would you like to read what's out in yellow?
Yep. Good. Robert Fabian informed investigators on Monday night, October 31, 2005, Robert arrived at the Avery Auto Salvage Yard at approximately 4:30 p.m. Robert was looking for Earl Avery to do some rabbit hunting on the salvage yard property.
Okay. So, Robert Fabian goes, no. I went there Monday and I was looking for Earl and we are going to do some rabbit hunting. But if you look at the next page, right? So they continue questioning Robert Fabian. If you just expand up that little bit, I'll read it out, right? He goes, he indicates the detached garage door is closed. He's talking about Stephen Avery's garage, right? Robert observes a smoke burning coming from a burn barrel located north of the driveway on Stephen Avery's residence. So he's saying that he saw smoke coming out of a burn barrel on the Monday when Teresa was there. But then right at the end of the report, I'll read it, goes, the following week, Robert receives a phone call at his residence from Cindy's sister, Teresa Liu. Teresa Liu has informed either Cindy or Robert that she has talked to Candy Avery, Earl's wife, right? Teresa Liu tells Robert that she was told by Candy Avery that Robert and Earl were rabbit hunting on the property on Wednesday, the 11th of the 2nd, instead of Monday, right? And Robert indicates he's sure it was on Monday, the 31st, because Cindy has taken the children trick-or-treating. So now something has happened in the background. Candy's obviously telling Earl, no, mate, you couldn't have gone rabbit hunting on the Monday. You did such and such. It couldn't have been on the Monday, right? So now they're getting that wrong. And if you have a look what when Fassbender and Wiegert were questioning Brendan, it goes, I didn't see anybody. Of course he wouldn't have seen anybody because Brendan was home for a start. And what's weird is that clearly Robert Fabian never said, me and Earl, we saw Stephen with Brendan. Never. And now we've got the situation whereby I don't think you went rabbit hunting on the Monday. And if we have a look at the next slide, they're going, what the hell's going on here, right? So, Susan, can you read out the portion that's been highlighted? They actually find out what actually happened that day. Can you read out what's been highlighted?
Yep. Information had been developed that Earl Avery had an appointment of some sort at Dr. Daniel's Eye Care. And we did speak with Julie, who is an employee of Dr. Daniel's Eye Care. She stated Earl picked up a second pair of glasses on Monday, 10/31/05, between 5 o'clock and 6 o'clock.
So they actually worked out what time he actually picked up his glasses. Right?
I think it was 5:40 or 5:35, something like that.
5:32. They actually worked it out because certain employees had left the premises after Earl was
They
there.
clocked out right after,
They
yeah.
clocked out. They knew the exact time. So Earl actually on that Monday went to pick up his glasses at eye care at 5:32. He could not have been with Robert Fabian at 5:20 in front of a burn barrel at 5:32 in front of a burn barrel, right?
And then he also stated that after that, they drove down the lane looking for rabbits.
That's correct.
After
That's
they left
correct.
Stevens. Yeah.
That's correct. So there's no way that Robert Fabian and Earl were at the burn barrel at 5:20. And guess what? The investigator Deidre drove from the salvage yard to the eye care and worked out that it takes 20 minutes.
Yep.
So they actually timed it. So there's no way that Earl was there with Robert Fabian seeing a smoking burn barrel on October the 31st, which debunks Brendan.
Day.
A totally different day, which completely debunks Brendan. Why? Because the kid was home. He was home. No wonder he never saw Earl or Robert Fabian, because he was at home. He was about to get a call from Michael Corneli. So these guys thought, oh my God, that's right. I went to go get my glasses. But to make matters worse, the investigators go, what the hell is going on? So they go back and ask Earl. So if we look at the next slide, Jack 61, Deidre goes back and speaks to Earl and says, what the fuck's going on? They had to remind... Sorry.
Oh, I'm sorry. I thought this was on November 3rd. Oh, it couldn't have been the 3rd.
Yeah. They go back. This is the 30th of November. They go back and speak with Earl, saying, did you do something on the 31st? Earl had forgotten that he went to pick up his glasses. And you notice what Deidre says? We then refreshed his memory as to what Dr. Daniels' eye care had stated. Earl had forgotten. He picked up his glasses. He forgot. And then have a look at what's in purple. Jack 61, you want to read that out?
Sure. Okay. We then went back to what day he and Robert Fabian were rabbit hunting. He stated, quote, Bobby said Monday, but I thought it was Wednesday.
Even Earl thought, no, mate, it wasn't a Monday. It was the Wednesday.
Well,
right?
In Earl's very first statement on the 5th, after they had found the RAV, he said he thought it was either Tuesday, Wednesday, or Thursday.
That's right.
Correct. And to make matters worse, if it's the Wednesday, him and Robert Fabian drove down the lane where the RAV4 was meant to be.
And it wasn't there.
And you know what? You know what's incredible? What was flying above their heads previously? The aeroplane. They flew. Remember they did the
Drummond. Yeah. Drum took the Pagel and Baldwin.
And Baldwin.
Yeah.
And they never spotted the RAV4. And here is Earl and Robert Fabian sighting in their rifles, rabbit hunting, that drove their golf cart, their mum's golf cart, down the very lane that the RAV4 was meant to be. They never saw it.
And also, Earl stated that when he and Robert were at Stevens, that the garage door was up.
Yes.
There was no RAV in the garage either.
No. And the other important thing was that they saw that the skidoo was hitched up to the trailer on the van, on his truck. So completely different day, right? And completely different recollections to what Brendan said.
Mm-hmm.
And to add to this, I mean, we could talk about, because we got statements from Earl and Fabian. But you think about this relatively new, decent looking car sitting there for 5 fucking days, and no one
Nah.
questions Earl and Chuck and say, "Hey, what's going
Yeah.
on with this pretty new looking car up here? What do you want
Yep.
for it?" I know if I told you guys I've been in many junkyards back when I was a car guy that did a lot of stuff. I was on many junkyards. If I'd have seen something like that, you can bet your ASS I would have asked about it. There's
Make a
no
bid.
way I would. I
Correct.
mean, I don't get it because if you look
It
around at all
wasn't
the
there.
other, it
It
wasn't
was not
there.
there. It
No.
was not there. No,
No.
100% correct. But if we go to the next page, this crystallizes it, right? So Earl, so this is the same report. If you just blow that up a little bit, Earl said that Earl indicated he did not notice any smoke near Stephen's residence. Now, he said the same thing on cam. So how on God's earth can Earl and Robert Fabian be together? Robert Fabian says, I saw smoke coming from the burn barrel. And Earl, who's next to him, goes, I don't remember any smoke.
Yeah.
Right.
There's one more thing I have to add in here because of my frustration with the DCI. I've asked twice and been denied. The unredacted audio from November
Earl?
9th. Earl Avery. They will not let me have it. What did he say in that interview that they
Yep.
won't let me have?
Yep. Well, remember Jack 61, what he said in the pre-trial. Goes, I was there. I didn't see that car was not there. Right. He was there. He was there with Robert Fabian on the
That's right.
Wednesday. They
right.
never saw it. They never saw it. And him and his brother, Stephen, were there on the Friday at the pond. At the pond. Neither of them saw it. So something is not right. And out pops Sawinski, who says, nah, I saw two people pushing it on the Saturday morning. And it all makes perfect sense, right? And these are guys, Robert, not Robert, well, Robert knows the yard, but someone like Earl, who places the cars there using the end loader, would know that what the hell is this shiny new RAV4 doing there? That's not meant to be there. They never saw it.
And also there's the the lie that Fabian told about Stephen coming out of his mom's house and saying
Correct.
that Teresa hadn't shown up, or
Yep, correct.
I
The
forget
photographer-
exactly what
the
it was.
photographer hadn't shown up. Correct.
Yeah.
And all of that was shown on cam. All of it was shown on cam, and it couldn't have been. Absolutely couldn't have been. All right. Well, look, guys, how we're doing for time. Shall we do a few more, or shall we stop here and answer some questions?
That's up to you guys. I'm good either way. But Susan,
Susan, Cherie?
I'm fine.
Cherie.
I'm fine.
Yep. Oh, we can continue a little bit more.
Sure.
Yeah.
All right. So now we go back into the interrogation again. And this is some very, very interesting stuff. All right. So would you like to continue your roles?
Yeah.
Yep. Awesome.
So here we go. Fassbender. How much time do you think it took from when you cut her on the neck to the time you guys got her out in the garage?
About 10 minutes.
After the fire, After the fire was, and she was put in fire, what time do you go home to your place that night?
About 9:30.
Did you come back out at all that night? Was Stephen out there when you went home?
Yeah, because he said he was going to watch the fire until it burnt down a little bit more.
What did you guys do with Teresa's body after that? After it was burned?
I don't know. I didn't do nothing with it.
Did Stephen do anything with it?
Yeah, but I don't know what.
What do you mean by yes, but you don't know what?
like he tried to bury it or something
How'd you do that?
with a shovel.
Oh my God. Did he take some of her body out of the fire pit?
Yeah.
Why don't you ask some more leading questions? He did. How? Tell me how he did that. Next page.
Like when the bones were left behind, he would like try to take the shovel and try to break the bones apart, and he would bury them like right in front of the fire almost.
What do you mean he'd bury them right by the fire?
Like he dug a hole and he put the bones in there and he buried it.
Where in relation to the fire?
Like 2 or 3 feet away.
Which way from the fire?
Like towards the garage.
Okay.
Did you see him do that?
I just heard that.
Heard it from who?
Him.
Oh, so he told you that he used the shovel to break up bones.
Yeah.
And then buried some of the bones, Brendan Dassey. Did he take some of her bones somewhere else? Or some anywhere else?
On the other side of the, like that, there was like in the back of the yard, there was this steep hill there, like in the pit. There was some there that he threw there.
Okay. We're in a little bit, we're gonna have you draw on some sketches and stuff, and we want these places. How do you know that there was some bones there?
He told me that he threw some there.
Did he tell you how he did that?
Okay.
Oh my God.
Now you notice the paradoxical nature. He says that he went home at 9:30 and he didn't go back out. The truth is Brendan was home by 8.
Yeah.
And he had multiple independent witnesses that saw Brendan at home at 8 o'clock or just before 8. No one reported a stink, a smell, nothing.
No, nothing.
And what's interesting, they asked Brendan, well, what did he do with the bones? What did he do with the body? Because I don't know. And then all of a sudden, he tells them all these things. So he's got no first-hand knowledge, no idea, yet he comes up with all these scenarios, correct?
Oh, yeah.
Yep.
Digging holes 2 or 3 feet towards the garage and burying bones? What?
Burying bones, throwing them at some pit. So let's have a look at this. The investigators, they brought in bulldozers, skid steers. They flattened the place, correct? They completely demolished the burn pit.
And this is months before this interview. They had to know what he was saying was complete bullshit.
They knew. But they flattened it, right? And the only tiny bone fragment they found, you can see the guy pointing his finger at it.
Or insulation.
Yeah, or insulation, wherever it was. That's not even in the burn pit, and it was already pre-buried, right? So that bone is very likely, if it's bone, likely animal, and it could have been there for years. But if you notice, it's not in the burn pit.
Nope.
Right? And it's not buried 3 feet towards the garage. They completely demolished the entire burn pit, took it apart. So they found no pile of bones.
He buried one tiny bone right there.
But don't worry. So if you have a look at the next picture, right? They knew there's no fresh dig sites anywhere. But check that. You look.
No.
There's no fresh dig sites. There's no sites that have been dug and covered up and buried. And does it make any sense? Think about this. We've just cremated Teresa Horbach. My dog's here, a German Shepherd. What I'm going to do is I'm going to dig a hole right in front of my dog and bury bones. You think that's a good idea?
No, just going to dig them up and chew on them.
What the dogs tend to do with bones? Dig them up, bite them,
and eat them.
Yeah. And don't worry, they even picked up his poop and they x-rayed it. They were
Yep.
looking
Yeah.
for bones. They were looking for all sorts of stuff. They're going, oh my God, did Bear potentially eat Teresa Hawbach? Right? That's their thinking. But there are no fresh digs around that burn pit anywhere. Otherwise, the fire investigators that would have gone around would have said, I think we better check over there. But let me ask a question. After they removed Bear, did they bring in a cadaver dog?
No.
Why not?
That's a damn good question. They
Really
didn't
not?
good
do,
question.
they didn't
A
do
cadaver,
anything.
a cadaver
Because the
dog can
bones were
detect,
planted.
yes, a cadaver dog can detect human decomposition buried many, many feet underground
Oh,
and
yeah.
even in water. So why not run a cadaver dog through their area? Why did they have to bring in skip steers and you know why? They didn't want anybody going there to check out the burn pit.
They
That's right.
wanted it destroyed.
They
Yep.
No
wanted it
photos.
destroyed. They wanted it completely flattened, right? Now, if you have a look at the next picture, right, this shows an expanded view of that burn pit. And what you notice is, right, the seat is not even in the burn pit. So in the burn pit, you see a ball of tire wire. Earl said he saw Brendan, I think on the Wednesday, on the 2nd, take out tire rims. So it's something that they do for recycling. They recycle the metal, they sell it for scrap metal. But the seat is not even in the burn pit.
You can see how vicious Bear was, though.
Oh yeah. Don't worry, I've got a beauty for you. And so they checked the seat. There's no evidence of any bone fragments being entwined in the seat. Nothing whatsoever. And you've got a chill out Bear. Now, they did ask Brendan about Bear, right, Jack 61? And
Oh, yeah.
we had a discussion a couple of weeks ago where Case 10 goes, oh, maybe Stephen took Bear away, right? Maybe Bear was taken away because remember the scenario that Brendan said, we put a naked Teresa Hawbach on the Blackjack Creeper and we carried it out like a hospital gurney, right, to the burn pit. Now, you think about it. You got a naked woman that's been throat cut, stabbed, hair cut, shot 10 or 11 times. They didn't even mention dismemberment, and they walk past the dog. Have a look what we could ask Brendan. You want to read out the part? And we'll just wait for that next slide to come up.
Okay, and where did you put her body?
Right here.
Draw it in there. Okay. Was the dog there yet at that time?
Yeah. The dog was like right over there.
Draw the doghouse then, where the doghouse was, and label that too. Okay. Why don't you label what that was?
Jackson's got any comments?
Lord God.
So they asked Brendan. You could see that Wiegert was reluctant. Was the dog there? And he goes, yeah, he was right there. So think about this, right? Think about this. Are you, in all honesty, going to fire off a weapon 10 or 11 times, carry out a dead person on a gurney right past the dog, and then cremate that person in front of the dog, and no one hears a dog barking in the background or an upset dog or anything like that? And Brendan said, yeah, the dog was right there. Now, had Brendan said, oh no, Bear was removed, then you go, holy shit, the dog was there. And where was Brendan on the 30th?
He's over there helping Stephen clean up the yard and so forth.
And where was Brendan? At the garage.
He was at the garage, yeah.
And can Bear reach the garage?
Sure.
Yes.
Yep. And Brendan said, yeah, the dog was there. And you can say, you can see from Wiegert going, oh, yeah, just throw it in there. Now, quite clearly, they didn't remove Bear, right? Bear.
And no,
he-
no blood drops on the way to
No.
the burn
No.
pit.
No.
No, nothing.
No, they got a cadaver. They got a cadaver dog that went
Yeah.
right around Stephen's residence and Bob Yunder's van. No alerts, none. No.
Doc, I've got an unplanned little clip. It's short, I promise, that I want to
Yeah,
put in. And this is just to give some measure of respect to Bear.
Yes.
This is a clip that Doc created several months ago, and it's one of my favorites. I use it a lot. Here we go.
That was a mean dog.
There was no way to search it with that dog there.
Mean. Cameraman's within reach of Bear.
That was a mean dog.
I think that's my highest rated clip that I've done so far.
I had to. I'm sorry. I just had to.
Well, you've got people making fucking outrageous statements about Bear. And the investigators down outright said we couldn't check out that fire pit. Why? Because we had a mean Alsatian dog.
That's
and
right.
even Kuczewski goes, I had my gun out, ready to shoot him.
The entire story is fucking outrageous. Everything.
Completely
Their entire
outrageous.
scenario.
Yep.
It's just stupid.
But not only that, we are demolishing it bit by bit, right? And we've seen today the falsehoods that were demonstratively false, what Blaine was saying and what Brendan was saying. And I put up the timeline where Brendan was home and he had a very limited time frame to have been with Stephen. Yet we know that he was with Stephen one day prior at 8:44. What time did he say to Fassbender? What time did you get home? 9:30. What did his mum tell him? I want you home, son, by 10 o'clock.
On Sunday.
And he did. He did.
On Sunday. Yeah.
Yep. On the Sunday, he did. And Barb rang up his brother, rang up her brother on the mobile phone, a short call. Because I said, Barb, are you sure that you, oh yeah, it was the day I went to go visit. No, it wasn't. It was the day prior. It was the day prior. So to answer case 10, no, they didn't move Bear. Right? And Brendan was not there at the evening at the burn pit on October the 31st. He was not there. He was at home. He was at home. He was probably in bed by 8:30. 8:30, 9 o'clock when his brother went to bed because they go to school the next day.
I don't think Brendan went to Stevens on Monday.
He may not have gone, no. But if you're being hard-nosed about this, you have to say, here are the time frames that Brendan could have gone.
Right.
What Fallon does after, what you have to be fair, right? You have to look at all possibilities. And I did, right? If
I
Brendan
wasn't there.
if Brendan could have been there for hours and hours and hours, then I'll say, oh shit, this doesn't look good. But the kid had backup. People had eyes on him in those 2 blocks, right? Prior to 6 o'clock and then prior to 8 o'clock when his mum came home. His brother was there in the house. Bobby was there. Then Blaine comes home, right? So Brendan
and then the phone calls with Jody. Brendan wasn't there.
Recollection.
No, and
None.
he wasn't. There was no discussion about Brendan being there.
Nope. And then later on, I'll prove to you that he debunks himself. All right. So, guys, we've got a few more slides. Should we continue? Is everyone in chat happy?
Yeah.
Let's do it. Let's do it. So this bit about Bear, we fast forwarded it. So now let's go back to their questioning.
He had him in a bucket.
And what am I understanding And what I'm understanding is then in the back of both your yards or his yards, down toward into the pit over that area.
In like Radon's pit.
Oh, Radon's pit. Brendan nods yes. Not in your. Brendan shakes head no. The salvage yard area. Brendan shakes head no. You think you'll be able to show us that?
Yeah.
Anything else that you did with the bones? Brendan shakes head no. That he told you or that you helped him? Did you help him do anything of this?
No.
Did he have any more fires that week?
Not that I know of.
Talked about Monday night about bad smells and stuff. Do you remember any smells coming from that fire after she was put it on there?
Just that it smelled bad.
You remember that? Brendan nods yes.
Okay. Now, the problem is this, right? He completely changed his narrative about the smell. In the first time that he was questioned, he goes, I didn't smell anything.
I didn't smell
Right?
anything.
I didn't smell anything. Plus, if he's there with his clothes on and a jacket and smoke, his clothes are going to absorb it. When he goes home, people are going to go, what the hell is that? What the hell is that smell? They even got his Friar Tuck jacket. Did anyone note any nefarious smells on that?
Nothing.
Yeah, he may have washed his pants. I understand that, but not his Friar Tuck jacket. You could tell it's all crinkly, right? He's never washed it. They never noted any smell. They were never detected. Hell, why not run a cadaver dog? Why not run a
Absolutely.
The wind was blowing toward Barb's as well.
Yes, yes, it was.
That's right.
It was. It wasn't going towards the western berm. It was going directly
No.
to their house, right? Nothing, right? So now he said that Stephen got a bucket and dispersed some of the bones, right? But remember, Brendan said, no, I went home. I know nothing about what happened, but he came up with all these suggestions thinking, well, what the hell, where the hell is he getting all these ideas from? But
Stephen told him. Stephen
Yeah.
told him all this stuff.
Everything. But he also said, keep quiet, don't say anything, right? So
Right.
if we have a look at the reality of where these bones were, you notice that the bones were distributed in multiple places. So we are to believe that Stephen, after cremating Teresa Hallbuck, thought, shit, I better get rid of this evidence. So he collects the ashes or the remaining bones in buckets and starts going on an expedition. But he's so good that he decides to leave some of the cremains in his own burn pit. He's such a good guy, right? Remember what Kratz used to say, oh, but thankfully, Stephen, he had left his DNA and thankfully Stephen had So Stephen, remember, this is only a small table-sized burn pit, size 4 foot by 5 foot. So he gathers up all the cremains, but decides he's going to leave some in his own burn pit. Then he decides he's going to walk over to his sister's place. Now, that means he walks past the bedroom window of where the boys are in, correct?
Yep.
He walks straight past. No one sees anything. And guess who's down there? 2 dogs. Barb's dogs.
Yep. That's right.
Near the burn pit area. Did any of the boys say, oh, my dog was the dogs were barking violently. What the hell's going on?
Nope.
Remember, they may know Steve, but the smell, cremains, ashes, what the hell's going on? Yeah, nothing. Stephen would have walked straight past the bedroom windows. No one notes anything, right? But he decides he's going to put 4 well, I better not. I'm going to trigger Duke. There's actually more bone fragments than just the 4, but he decides to put some bones in his sister's burn barrel just for fun. Then he walks in the dark all the way, not to Redonce, but the Manitowoc County gravel pit in the dark. Remember, Redonce workers are there next door. And Stephen allegedly dumps 3 debris piles. Susan, why would he do that? Why would he dump 3 debris piles in the Manitowoc County gravel pit?
Oh, Doc, it makes total sense to me. You know, he's trying to, cover up his dirty deed.
There you go. So instead of putting all the cremains in a bucket or containers and going to a river, a forest, anywhere, he decided
Lake Michigan, he could have drove out on any pier and dumped all of it, and it's gone forever.
No. He's going to run the gauntlet in nighttime, in darkness, and go to the Manitowoc County gravel pit, and no one sees him do it. And he dumps the bones in 3 separate piles. 3. And you're thinking to yourself, this can't be right. Where the hell is Brendan getting this concept of bones, buckets, getting rid of this? Have a look at the next slide. I just about fell off the chair when I saw it. Susan, you want to read this one out? It's on the news.
Top story, Action 2 News. A number of 5-gallon type buckets have been located on the Avery compound property, which appear to have been utilized to distribute the burned remains.
There you go.
That was Wednesday. That was November 14th.
There you go. Yep. Way before Brendan got questioned. So remember that they've been at Crivets. They're watching the news. They're reading the newspapers. They're getting all the information. They're talking amongst themselves. Bang, that comes up on the news. Buckets.
This just makes me think of, just for instance, like the Idaho 4 killing. They have not let out very little. There was stuff in the probable cause, but
just the now sheet.
These details. Generally, an investigation, they do not, as it comes out, they don't give this to the press unless they're very unethical.
100% correct. And I had other slides. This is our last slide, by the way, for today. I had other slides in which the entire case was said in newspapers and on TV. All the major findings, all the major evidence. And remember, they're watching this on TV.
The Averys are watching every report. You know it.
They're phoning them all the time, saying, do you realize this? Do you realize that?
Stephen's been arrested by then.
Yep.
He's in jail.
Yep.
Brendan's devastated.
Yes.
And he's hearing this kind of stuff.
Yes. Yep.
Yeah.
So all the major elements that Brendan relayed back to the investigators was in the media, was available in the media. What were the 2 things that weren't in the media? The shooting and the hood latch, going underneath the hood latch. What didn't Brendan say to them from his own mouth?
The shooting and the
and going underneath the car. So all the major elements of the case was available in the newspapers, everything. And now you just saw buckets, cremains, distribute, right? And I didn't put it up because I didn't have time. Guess who phoned up Josh Redon and said, what's going on down there? Chuck did.
Yeah. Yep.
And Redon saying, what's going on down there? I haven't been down there. What's going on? And this was when he was at Crivets and Brendan was there. So he's getting all these ideas. Well, what's going on down at Redon's, right? And the kid has got such a poor memory and recollection. He's mishmashing everything, right? So that's the end of our podcast for today. I hope that you enjoyed the podcast. I know we'll do some questions, but it goes to show that when you look at things from a different light, different perspective, away from Mam, away from Cam, look at the documents. What do they say? What do people say? What stacks up? What corroborates? What is complete rubbish? And you can see that what Blaine was saying was completely dead wrong. but it had a drastic consequence because it was presented in court as fact, right? What is Sukowicz said the same thing. And also Josh Cole and Lisa Kumfer said, there's no forensic evidence, but it's known that he's been convicted. So that's the truth. So even though there's nothing that ties Brendan to the murder of Teresa Horbach or her RAV4, because the judges rejected, he lost 4-3, en banc. It's law, it's truth. But we've just shown that everything that Blaine said was wrong. But Blaine said right at the start when he was with Cornelie, I got home at about 9:30. He was out by an hour. And what Susan said could well be right.
Oh,
The clock,
daylight savings time.
Yep, if the clock hadn't been changed over that one day, then he's out. But Carmen, who's obviously a responsible parent, said, no. I picked up Blaine between 5:30 and 6. It was dark, saw nothing. I dropped off Blaine at 8:15, 8:30. My jaw hit the ground. Wait, he's out by 3 hours, which means there's no Stephen, there's no big whopping fire, and there's nothing. And I showed you pictures of where the burn pit was. It was right outside the window. I had a direct vision of it. Are you trying to tell me that no one noted a fire, smoke, light, smell?
Right.
Nothing. This kid is in prison. He's in prison for something he never did.
I got something to say. I got something, one comment before we get to the questions, Doc, about the buckets. And I don't know how many of you will remember this, but there is a phone call and there's actually
Yes.
a report about the buckets. And this was
Need more buckets.
I want to say Captain Rush, but I think it was Captain Rush. He went to Menards, or maybe it was D.I. Shutter, one of the two. They already had 3 buckets with lids, and he went to Menards and bought 15 more.
Yes.
And those all went to the Avery salvage yard. So what buckets are they talking about here? Because
right,
I don't. Right, that's what I'm saying. I don't know. Maybe I'm just not remembering a report or something where they allegedly found all these buckets on the Avery salvage yard. I don't remember.
I don't recall that, them finding a bunch of buckets.
I don't either.
I know they used a bunch of buckets.
They did. They did. So I don't know if this is a media report that's just gotten hosed up, which wouldn't surprise me. I don't know. Anyway.
Well,
I also want to. Oh, go ahead, Doc.
No.
Oh, I was just looking at 3 RAV4s. Funny how Chuck is curious when he called Redaunt. Well,
yes.
You've got this, you've got the police have completely taken over your home, your business.
Yep.
You're locked out. You're up in Crivets. You have no idea what's going on down there. I don't think it's funny Chuck was curious at all. My God. If that happened to you,
I would.
And they found this girl who's missing's car on your property, and no, I don't find that anything funny about that, or curious, or out of line.
I'm sure they were. I bet there's a lot of anxiety. Go ahead, Doc.
I was going to say, I think I know where 3 Rev is going with that. Why Chuck would do it, but there's no forensic evidence against Chuck Avery or anybody else. Bobby Dassey, Brendan Dassey, nobody else. It's all pointing to the only person who had a $36 million civil suit. That's Stephen, right?
That's right.
But it's once a misconception gets out in the media, and once an attorney goes on television and literally reads out what Brendan said to them, you can't undo it.
No, it's done.
You can't undo it. And it's taken...
Turned a lot of people's minds.
Yep.
Turned a lot of people
now are convinced, oh my God, Brendan and Stephen are guilty.
Before that, I was, really thinking that maybe the cops had done something, but once that press conference hit.
Finished. Finished. And we're showing bit by bit that what Brendan has said, and don't worry, we got more. What Brendan was saying is completely debunked. It's got no basis in reality, right? Because Brendan wasn't in isolation.
No.
Right.
But Fallon and Kratz gave the impression that this murder took place in a vacuum. Would you agree? As in,
Yes.
nobody else was around. Nobody else was around.
That's right.
But that this occurred in a vacuum. Oh, Bobby's gone. He's out of the picture. Brendan and Stephen. And they did all these things. You think to yourself, you've forgotten about everybody else.
It's like Stephen's property and trailer were moved off the somewhere in fairyland, and all this shit occurred, and no one could observe anything. Come on.
It was Twilight Zone.
Yeah.
But then when you start factoring in reality, that people were coming and going and people overlapped in their times, it's completely impossible.
Yeah.
And they didn't call up Carmen. They didn't call up Carmen.
That's a big problem, because this shows the level of deception that they were willing to do to get a conviction, not the truth, because by not including her, they buried the truth.
Yeah, correct. And the reason why, even though it wasn't involving Brendan, the reason why is because Blaine's statement of seeing Stephen at 11 o'clock.
That's right.
That's it. That's it. They wanted that to stand.
That's right.
They wanted it to stand.
Well, I'd love to have the audio of the conversation between Brendan or Blaine and these investigators.
Yep. Would have been
exist. It's like the one with Kayla. I'd like to hear that one too. And trust me, I'm going to request these from both the DCI and Calumet, because somebody, I don't know that they recorded it, but I have a feeling they did.
Yep. See,
anyway.
I was going to say, just quickly before we wrap it up and do the questions, you can't keep on having a situation whereby you've got an ultra-violent murder. Would you agree? It's ultra-violent.
Oh, God,
absolutely.
The way they've tried to paint it. Yeah.
Yep. It's extreme ultra-violence. And you can't find any forensic evidence of that ultra-violence. Now, we can debunk item felt, piece of cake. The cremains, you can't tell the difference between someone with a bucket and just dumping. And it's only a subset of cremains.
That's right.
And cremains have been found in multiple locations.
55 to 60% is missing.
Missing, right? So we can explain all of that. You look at the dogs, look at the scent dog, you look at the cadaver dogs. What messages are they giving? You look at Brendan Dassey, the guy is giving a running narrative. We're destroying it completely. What he says next crystallizes it. The kid wasn't.
There's another piece that I started to mention on your the diagram that you had with the bones where they were found, and I'm gonna go ahead and mention it, because I can't forget about this reply that Fallon and Kratz wrote to Buting and Strang about Cuss Road. Fallon clearly put in there they found bones there.
Correct.
I cannot excuse what Sipple called in on November 9th to his captain. I will not let that go. And we don't know no photos, no one was called in, and they're not entered into evidence at all. They just, where the hell are they? What are they?
Did you like the little clip I put on X about Fassbender saying, they didn't take photographs because, obviously the body had been moved. I'm there.
Right.
You didn't know anything about those remains. How the hell did you know about stuff being moved? Right? And you can see his eyes were rolling in the back of his head thinking, shit, what I just said, that didn't make any sense at all. Right. When you come up to a crime scene, you can't come up with answers before you've done any analysis. Correct?
That's right.
He's working backwards. Oh, we know the body's moved. How the hell did you know the body was moved?
Right. That's right.
On November the 8th, unless you found something on the 7th at Cuss Road.
That's right.
Correct? Unless you found something beforehand.
I fully believe they found something, but like Susan's question from months ago.
Oh, yeah.
Why did they move the crime scene?
I can't work it out.
Bruno just asked, must we stay trapped in KK narrative? Are we sure Teresa Halbach died on October the 31st?
No.
Well,
we're
the
not.
reason we say stay trapped in KK's narrative is this is what convicted Stephen Avery
That's
and
what was
Brendan Dassey. This is the reason they are in prison. And
Yes.
we all know this narrative is bullshit.
correct.
And, you know, you can try and come up with other scenarios of if Stephen did kill her, how did he do it? Where did he do it? When did he do it? Come up
Correct.
with that. But it doesn't make a difference as far as
Legally.
their imprisonment legally.
Correct.
If he did do it some other way, some other time, it has nothing to do with it because we're talking about his trial, his jury, the evidence the jury's heard,
Correct.
and the reason that they're in prison.
Correct.
The legal standing is what happened at trial in February and March 2007. That's it.
There is no other evidence to figure out either if Stephen did it elsewhere, how he
No.
did it, when
No.
he did it. There's no
Right.
evidence. You know, you can speculate all you want, but that's not how justice works.
No.
No. No.
No.
Not at all.
No. Kathleen Zone even said, you need to provide an alternative to what the state put as a narrative and prove it.
That's right. That's right.
Prove it. You can't. We have to stay in that realm because that's what got two people convicted by their narratives, and we're showing that that narrative cannot be supported by forensic evidence, which means that Teresa couldn't have been killed in the manner that the state said. Teresa couldn't have been killed in the manner that Brendan Dassey had said, right? So you got to stay in that realm and prove it incorrect. Unfortunately, when it comes to Brendan, it's his words. So the argument that Drizzen and Nyrider put forward is the evils of the read technique, and I agree. But they needed to push more about the timelines like we did, saying, mate, there's no way that Brendan's over there because we've got timed phone calls. We've got eyewitnesses that places Brendan here, not
That's
there.
right. That's right.
So by focusing on that timeline, you can say, all right, how are you going to prove he was there between 6 and 8? Who saw him? Nobody did.
Nobody did.
Nobody did. Oh, but Brendan was there 1 day prior. We could prove it. Oh, shit. Was he there? Did he do all these things with his uncle, cleaning up, getting up bits and pieces on the Sunday? I reckon yes. Because I looked, I don't know about you guys, I couldn't find one reference to Brendan being on the property with Stephen in the garage on the Sunday. It's not mentioned anywhere.
It's not mentioned anywhere.
It's not
And he was.
mentioned anywhere.
We know that he was.
He was there.
They completely ignored that.
I forgot
But
it.
again, but again,
they didn't go there.
We have to look at the DCI reports from 1 to 350, whatever. There are still dozens we don't have. They will not release them for some reason.
Why.
Well,
I
you know,
wonder
if that is talked about this phone call on the 30th, Houston, we got a problem.
Massive. And there it is in black and white. You could hear it right at the start at 8:44. Stephen's talking to Brendan. Who are you talking to? Brendan, garage, clean up.
Right.
You think,
Clean.
oh shit, that's exactly what he was saying that he was doing on the 31st. He did it 1 day prior.
I believe that. I do believe that.
I do too.
Yep.
Okay. All right. You ready for questions?
Yeah, let's go for it.
All right, Susan, I'm going to put these up. If you can read them out.
Okay. What is the credibility of Blaine saying he saw Bobby driving the Rat? I know he was pressured for his statement, but why say this? Because it does not help the state.
Who would like to have a go at that one?
I can't answer it. I just don't know. I don't know why he'd make that statement. I don't know.
To me, it's impossible. And I'll tell you why. Because of the timing that he saw Bobby in the green car, right?
Yeah.
It's impossible. You know why? Because the bus driver would have, the propane tank driver would have seen the bus pull in. Never saw it. Because Blaine said he saw Bobby in a vehicle like Teresa's when he was coming home from school, which
I
meant
think it's
that,
I think it's probably mistaken identity. I can't prove that, but
or because they did have a car that was a greenish bluish car that was in the garage, and maybe Blaine had remembered Bobby driving that car at another time or
Maybe.
whatever. But Bobby can't be in two places at once.
no.
Because that's why the confusion of when Blaine saying, "Oh, when me and my brother got home, Bobby was in the bed sleeping," and we debunked it. He couldn't have seen him when he got home, but he saw him when he came home from trick or treating. So if Blaine saw Bobby in that car when he was coming home from school, the propane tank driver would have seen the bus drive right past them. Never did. And drive back out. Never did. Yeah, so I don't think that's accurate.
I don't think it is either. I agree.
Yep.
All right. Next question from Dan's Life. Susan?
Sorry. Can't run it through CODIS in case they have an escaped inmate that it may match to?
Yeah, this is early on talking about CZ.
Yeah.
CX. Yeah.
Or CX, I mean, not CZ. CX.
Yeah.
Can't
I think
disagree
she had
with that.
also asked if like the lawyers could run it through. I remember a question really early about that.
It's coming up.
But I bet
It's
you
only
but
it's
I bet
only
you
done by law enforcement. I think
Exactly,
you
yeah.
have to have FBI
Yes.
approval to run CODIS.
Yeah.
Well,
I don't.
I'm not
I don't-
mistaken.
I don't know if the lawyer can file a motion to ask for that to be done. The defense lawyer, I'm not sure. Maybe Cherie, is that possible?
Probably.
Or
Yeah, I would think so. I haven't done one, but I think if it was done, that's how it would be done.
Plus, you could imagine the state attorneys are going, will come up with 20 different reasons as if to say, no, you can't do it. And they'll tell you why you can't do it. They'll say, oh, what information are you going to get? Is it going to clarify the case? Blah, they'll come up with all these legal
Right.
arguments as if to say, forget it. We're not going to
Right.
allow you to test it. If they did, they would have handed over the RAV to Kathleen Zona years ago.
yeah.
We're confident that Stephen killed Teresa Horbuck. Test what you want. I won't let her touch it.
No.
They should definitely have run CX through CODIS.
Oh, no
They
doubt.
had a full profile.
And redo 823.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Redo 823.
Heck yeah.
And tested A13A, ran it through and got a profile.
Correct.
Yep.
Just run it through CODIS.
Mhm.
All right. Next question from 3 Red Force.
Why are leading questions allowed in police interrogation, but not in prosecution examination of a witness?
Yeah. They're legally allowed to do it.
The read technique, you can do anything you want, including lie.
Pretty much.
Leading questions in court, including total lies. Yeah.
Short of beating the shit out of somebody, it's pretty much open season.
And you could see, this is what infuriated me. They would ask a question implying superior knowledge to Brendan. And Brendan would go, yeah. Oh, did he? As if to say, shit, I didn't know that. So they set him up. You get it? They do it to him all the time. They do it to Paul Brendan all the time. And what they do about the Keneally call, oh my God, is you're going to smash iPads.
Absolutely. Yep. Okay. Next question. Another one from 3 Red Force. Doc, you're going to love this.
Does Fabian mention seeing a RAV4 parked?
Nope.
Oh, no. Wait. Yes, he does at the turnaround.
Fabian did?
I think he did. Yes. Robert Fabian did. I think he did.
I know Rambo.
Is he the one that changed it and said, oh no, it had round lights or something? I thought it was a RAV, but
I'll have to reread that. I have to reread that.
Somebody
to-
said that. I don't know who.
because I think
It changed their mind that it wasn't.
Yeah, online there's a list of all the people that saw the RAV off the property. I think Robert Fabian's one of them. I have to please take it as a grain of salt. I have to double check it, but I've heard it before.
Was Tadek one of them too? Did Scott say he saw
That I can't
a
remember.
vehicle there?
No, there was a.
He may have he may have been the one that said the lights were round and could not have been a map or something.
I know that who was a gentleman that saw the RAV4 at the turnaround and then SMS'd Scott Tadich and then said, "Oh, I've got a headache. I can't talk now."
Crockett's remembering it was Fabian.
I thought it was
Right.
too. I thought it was Robert Fabian as well. Yep.
Okay. Another question from 3 RAV4s.
Where's the RAV supposed to be when Brendan and Stephen are having a soda and Earl and Fabian are walking around outside?
Well,
question.
That's a very good question. Well, Brendan has got no idea. All right.
And
See,
Fabian and Earl were not there.
No idea. They got no idea. They got no idea either. So if you look at what Brendan said, Brendan goes, "Oh, the RAV4 was out by the trees." Are you sure, Brendan? It's out by the trees? I don't like that story. Oh, that's right. The RAV4 was in the garage, but the door was open and the nose was sticking out. The nose was sticking out. And then you got Robert and Earl going, "Oh no, the garage door was down." But we just proved it's demonstrably false. They weren't there. They weren't there on the Monday.
And then Earl said the garage door was out.
Correct?
That's right.
I mean,
he did.
Their story, if you read all their stories, it's just silly.
It's just
they weren't there on Monday.
No. That's why Candy would have said, "Mate, you weren't there. You went to go get your glasses." What do you mean glasses? What do you mean glasses? He's the right, and that's why Deidre was going, "Holy shit, he was meant to be it," right? So nothing matched.
No.
Now think about this. Think about this. If Teresa left, there's no RAV. Agree?
Agree.
There's no RAV4. If Teresa drove off, there's none of this shit. There's none of this shenanigans. No one's got any recall. Why? Because the car's not there. And you could tell by Brendan's answers going, "It was out there. No, it was here. No, it was there." And then you got to factor in that they took her RAV and put it to the pit, but Brendan was home by 8.
Well, let's just say that the RAV was in the garage. That means Stephen would have had to move a bunch of shit, number one.
2 vehicles.
2 vehicles. I mean, one of them would have to have been pushed out.
Correct.
Because it didn't run. The engine didn't run.
Correct.
No way. There's just no way. No way. Anyway.
No. And plus, remember, there are people coming and going.
That too.
At Barb's house. Can you imagine? Can you imagine the scenario of Barb saying to Scott, "What's my son and Stephen doing in that RAV4? Why are they driving? Why are they driving?"
We would have had to pull the truck somewhere out of the way.
Correct.
Right? It would have been moved. I mean, nothing works.
No, it doesn't.
Next question from Under Your Scars.
Who was the white Jeep following a RAV to the quarry the older fellow mentioned years later?
That was Siebert.
That was years later.
And
only Jeep came back out, which means RAV was taken to the yard the back way in.
Back way. Yeah, that's Siebert.
And that was shortly after they found the RAV, right? It wasn't years later.
I have to check when he gave an affidavit.
Yeah.
Yep, I have to check that. Correct. He saw 2 vehicles go in, and the white Jeep came back out.
Yep, that's right. Okay. Next question from Passive Bear.
Why didn't law enforcement use dog track 3 from the van to Cuss Road After all, Fassbender and Wiegert told Stephen the dogs led us to the body. And did any dogs go up Avery Road and turn left?
Nope.
No.
Mm-mm.
And there were also no dog tracks that went the same direction that Brendan said they drove the RAV4.
That's right.
None.
Nothing. Yeah,
Yet
nothing.
they told Stephen that we know where the RAV4 came from. It came from Redonce deer camp and came in the back way. And he said to Stephen, because the dogs followed your scent, they lied.
They lied.
The scent dogs were looking for Teresa's live scent, not for Stephen's.
Yeah. Okay. One final question, unless there's more that popped up, and this is from Bruno. This is going to be I don't think we can answer this one.
Where did TH actually die? When and where? I'm assuming he meant.
Right.
Who knows?
No idea.
We don't know, and if the police know, they've kept a lid on it.
Yep.
And they actually may know. I'm going to go that far.
They may know. They may know.
Correct. The clue is in the RAV. The clue's in the RAV.
And Cuss Road.
That's right. Yep, correct. The blood, like I said, sorry, Jack 61.
I was just going to say, if anyone, we talked about the burn pit and what the fuck they did with it. They destroyed that burn pit. Pull up Google Earth
Destroyed
now.
evidence.
Pull up Google Earth now and look at Cuss Road, that property, and what they did there. They destroyed that entire area. All the trees are gone. Everything's been graded off. It's gone. Yes.
Really? I didn't know that.
Yes, it's been gone for years.
That's recent then.
Well,
I mean,
it goes back
I remember when Jinx and all the people from the rally, or some of them, Becca and they went out there, and it wasn't destroyed then. It was still all trees.
Well, it's gone.
And that was
all that.
What year was that, Cherie?
The last time we were there was 22, I think. Yeah. So.
Were you there? Did you go to Cuss?
Yeah, we went in 21 and 22.
Okay. Yeah. You were with that group.
It's all leveled off. The trees are gone. It's destroyed.
Ever since, you mean since 2022 when we were there?
Yeah, because the trees were there when you were there, right?
It depends on what trees you're talking about. Are you talking about the ones like if you're face towards Stevens on the right, where there's a pile of wood?
Yeah, on the right, like where they searched. You know where that's at.
Yeah.
You know
Is that
were those gone?
Yeah.
They were gone. No, I mean when you were there, Cherie.
Oh no, they were. I think the trees were there when we were there, but it's been a couple of years, so
it looks different now.
That's interesting. I didn't know that had happened.
I didn't either.
Got a couple more questions. I'll flip back over to the live questions. Well, this is actually the second one from Hugh. Is Brenda Schuler's initial involvement personal? I suspect yes.
I don't think so. Personal?
Well, I just, in my conversations with her, as I recall, because she lived in that area, she had, whatever online presence with whoever, and, met people in the case. I say talked to people in the case, found out that they found out she lived there. They started asking her to get records and go here and get that. And that's how she became involved. That's my conversation with her from, several years ago. At this point. Oh yeah, it was. After Ma'am. Yeah, that's right.
Because during the trial, after the trial, Brenda was sure they were guilty, and then how she explained it to me, and then she watched Ma'am, and she's like, "Holy shit, what's going on here?"
That's
so
right.
Then she started digging.
Yes.
And she met Fassbender and Andy
Colburn. Yep.
Larry Ladrona, the records custodian at Manitowoc. Uyghur.
and
Well,
was yeah,
she told
and
me that her and Uyghur did not get along at all. But be that what it may.
yeah. So I don't think it was personal.
Same question about Kratz. He was asking. I've never seen anything that tells me. I'm not saying it couldn't happen, Hugh, from my personal opinion, but nothing that we have says that they were that they knew each other at all. But
No,
again,
but to me, I think Kratz did it for his own self-aggrandizement.
yes,
Period.
Oh,
absolutely.
he went overboard.
Yeah.
He was on a mission. Yeah. And
All self-serving, just to further
Definitely.
his career.
no
Yeah.
question. No question.
And to be famous and to
Yes.
get his
They're all-
face on television and hell yeah.
Yep. Narcissistic.
In that
And it
way,
all-
it was personal.
Yeah. And it all went pear-shaped, big time.
Well, yeah, because no one expected this case to become such a under the
No.
microscope for
No,
millions
hell
of people.
Hell no.
And out of the millions of people, there's thousands from
Well,
I guess our group, and I'm sure there's many other people just on their own that have dug deep.
Yes.
plus, being exposed in that scandal with those vulnerable women, which had
Yes.
nothing to do with this whole case. And he just destroyed himself.
Oh
Correct.
my God, yes.
Self-imploded. Correct.
Self-imploded.
What's he's doing on X now?
Oh.
I got no idea. I
Yeah,
got no
I
idea.
don't.
I
don't either.
got another couple of questions lined up for him that he's probably not going to like, and I'm not doing it to trap him, or I'm not. And I want everyone, especially him, to understand my questions from us or me specifically. I'm not here to play no gotcha games. I want to know what he has to say publicly about these very relevant case questions that we cannot explain and no one has explained, and they are relevant.
Oh,
They won't
yes.
get. You won't
Yep.
get answers.
Well, I mean, he's answered some. I mean, he's given his response. Not that I agree with it, but at least some of them he has responded. So I guess there's that. Anyway, Crockett Thomas says Kratz was there on the 5th. Well,
Teresa was from Calumet County.
She was, but at the same time, I look at this case, and then I look at the Rudy case and the response. I definitely there's this 4 or 5 prosecutors or assistant district attorneys showing up.
Massive.
It's a massive response to this case.
Massive response.
Because of the lawsuit, and let's not kid ourselves.
Yep, it's all about the lawsuit. The difference between the response with Teresa Halbach compared to Christine Rudy is chalk and cheese. Chalk and cheese.
What? Chalk and cheese? I haven't heard that one.
That's an Australian saying.
Yeah,
no doubt. Chalk
I
and
hadn't
cheese.
heard it either.
What'd you say, Sherry?
Sherry?
Oh, I just said I hadn't heard it either. It's new to me.
Oh, yeah.
Chalk
and cheese.
Chalk and cheese.
Susan, you want to read Nan's question? We'll call that the last one.
Nan's life. Yeah. Is it standard practice for law enforcement to contact their DA when they have nothing but a missing person reported, and to notify DA the day the missing person call came in?
Well, that's Wiegert.
Yeah.
We got in the book. Wiegert rolls up to Kratz. You won't believe the last place that Teresa was at. Where? At Stevens. So his name was mentioned on November the 3rd, the day she was reported missing. But I think the machinations were turning way before November the 3rd. I think they officially had to wait 2 days to ring in Teresa as a missing person. But I think things
They
worked.
knew. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, they knew.
Yeah.
They had to make it official.
Well, I think there's another call. They won't let me have it. I do think there's another call prior to November 3rd. I can't prove that, of course, but they were a pretty tight family. They were pretty close, with almost daily contact with Teresa, with her mom or sisters or somebody, Mike, her brother.
Yeah.
But and for her to just kind of drop off the face of the planet, I
No.
think there would have been questions no later than the first. No later.
For 4 days? Yeah. I
Yep,
mean,
definitely.
that's a long time.
It is.
She's not answering her phone. She, her voicemail's full.
Yep.
Yeah.
Okay.
We're done?
That's all the questions. Yeah, I mean, there's still a lot of people talking, but we're at 3 hours and 46 minutes, Doc.
Fantastic. Fantastic.
Absolutely.
We're looking.
It's been a really good presentation and very eye-opening. I know certainly I knew most of this, but I'm sure for a lot of people this is extremely eye-opening because it proves without a shadow of a doubt Brendan was not there, at least for a good chunk of what they're presented at trial.
Yep. His timeline has been shrunk down significantly. Whereas what the state are trying to do is this: get it, expand it, not contract it, because they're not silly. They know all the work required to convert a human being to bone fragments, so they need a lot of time. So they're trying to expand the time because Brendan's saying he was there, he participated. He could not have participated.
Yeah.
Okay.
Susan, you want to read out this final comment from Tim Tedious, I promise, and then we'll wrap up.
Sure. Which is very interesting. Pre-trial, Poggle admits he was notified at home regarding Teresa's disappearance. And when asked if that was typical, he responded something to the effect of, "It's not typical or atypical."
A non-answer.
Yeah.
Well, he became personally involved, like Kaseric did. Right?
Sure
who was in the aeroplane on the 4th? The sheriff, Pagel. In the plane.
Yeah.
What? He couldn't get a deputy or somebody? Hey, fly up in the plane, get a camera, photograph everything. No, the sheriff went there.
Oh yeah, he was there every day, all day.
Every day. He was at Cuss. He was everywhere.
Why didn't we get the rest of the?
Except the burn pit.
Correct. No one showed up at the burn pit. Correct.
Why didn't we get the rest of the flower footage from the 4th if they got the coordinates for zippers?
Yes.
So don't tell me that fucking tape's not edited.
No,
don't tell me that. It's a
heavily,
lie.
Heavily edited. No question about it. Yep.
Okay, I lied. One more final question from you.
Why has the media not mentioned that the sister of one of the sheriffs alleged that he unalived Ricky Hochstetler? That's as big as the $36 million.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, that's a good question.
That's got Karen Reed all over it.
No doubt.
That's another Karen Reed analogy.
God,
what happened to Ricky?
What an awful case. Oh my God.
All right. Well, look, guys, I hope that you've enjoyed the podcast, that you've learned something new. I'm learning stuff new all the time. And next week, God willing, we'll be continuing the Brendan's interrogation. We've got so much more to cover. But through all your excellent questions and feedback, I've been able to go back, and also Jack 61 and others adding more information, more input, and we're expanding the lens of what we've been doing, and it's just been shocking. With when we looked at Stephen was like this. You looked at the forensic evidence, you weighed the pros and cons. But with Brendan, it's a completely different story. You've just got words. So you need to look deeper to see what supports it, what doesn't support it. So I think we've shown a lot of good stuff so far. We'll be continuing that next week. And again, guys, if you've enjoyed our podcast, please consider subscribing. And if you enjoyed what we do, please give us a thumbs up and share our podcast. And please write down your comments in the video, and I'll try and answer them as quickly as possible. Someone from the team will answer as quickly as possible. And let's just quickly go down the panel. Jack 61, what about yourself? How are you coming along?
I'm doing very well. I did get finally a response from Queso. They say that my last open records request is being processed. Now, keep in mind, today's the whatever. I sent that request in on June 3rd.
June 3rd.
I did modify it a few days later as a site modification. It really wouldn't have affected anything. It just really expanded one part of it. So again,
3.5 months.
Well, 2.5 months. They've had it. I mean, the standard 10-day response was blown by and ignored. I sent two status updates request in July. Didn't get a response to either one. I finally sent another one last week, and I included the prosecutor and one of the corporate lawyers for the county, and I got a response. I imagine there were some conversations of what's going on with this. Nothing that I've asked for is sensitive. Nothing. So the stonewall continues. Anyway, hopefully I'll get an answer this coming week and get that in process. And then for tomorrow, we're going to go back into the key calls list, listen to some more of those. We'll do for a couple hours or whatever people want to do and get as far as we get and go from there. Other than that, really great presentation, Doc. Fantastic. And thank everyone out there that's come along and asking some great questions in the conversation.
Yeah. Thank you so much, Jack 61. And next we have, I don't recall. How about yourself?
I'm doing well, and I agree with Jack. It was great, interesting, learning new things every time. I'm still watching Karen Reed. I'm still behind. I'm actually listening to Jackson's closing right now. So,
okay.
Wow, it's interesting.
Awesome. Yeah, that's another crazy case. Thank you so much. I don't recall. And next we have Susan. Susan.
What did she just say? What closing?
Was it Johnson?
Alan Jackson is giving a closing argument for Karen.
Oh, you're re-listening to it. I see.
No, it's the first time. I was busy with something else at the time.
Oh, okay. Yeah. Yeah, that case is nuts. But anyway, Doc, great job. I mean, I know this takes a lot to put together to dig all this out and compare everything and put it together. So kudos to you. Good job.
Thank you.
Great podcast. And thanks everybody for being here, asking questions, staying involved. We appreciate you.
Fantastic. Thank you so much, Susan. Thank you so much. And on that, guys, we'll catch you tomorrow. Thank you.
And with that said, I'm going to tell you, this has been a Foul Play production.